If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 26. Chapter 26. Didn't I tell you? It's best not to get involved with him. After leaving the Ichiraku ramen shop, Narayanako gave Kaito a very dissatisfied glare. Apparently, she had not expected Kaito to do such a thing. In Yanako's memory, Kaito had always been a very, very intelligent person, and he was also very kind to people, always calm in his actions. It was hard to see that he was a member of the Uchiha clan. His insight and judgment even earned the admiration of Yanako from the Nara clan. Only after a few years of not seeing him, she met Kaito today, and she found that he was still the same as before, but his mind seemed to have changed. He had become stupid. Who was that little brat just now? Although it was not allowed to be discussed in the village, and the villagers took the rumors as fact, considering Naruto to be the incarnation of the Nine Tails. But the reality was not far from that, because Naruto was the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Inside him was sealed a Nine Tails. And on the night of the Nine Tails incident, the involved ninja all saw the reflection of a pair of scarlet Sharingan patterns in the eyes of the Nine Tails. What did this imply? It implied that the Nine Tails was being controlled, and the one controlling the Nine Tails was an Uchiha. Even though many years have passed, the scene of the Nine Tails rampaging through Konoha and causing the death of the fourth Hokage and his wife is still vivid in the memory of all the villagers. The destruction caused by the Nine Tails can be said to be the first time the village of Konoha suffered such a severe attack. Even if ordinary people didn't know that the Nine Tails was being controlled, would the high-ranking officials of Konoha not know about these things? What does it mean for you, an Uchiha, to interact with the Nine Tails? Such behavior is hardly different from courting death. I know, rest assured, I'm aware of what I'm doing. Facing the nagging Narayanako, Kaito shook his head somewhat helplessly. He wasn't angry because he knew this was Yanako's way of showing concern for him. When others showed kindness towards him, Kaito would not find it troublesome or annoying. The sage once said, repay resentment with justice, and repay kindness with virtue. Although Kaito knew the original meaning, he preferred to understand it as, if others are good to you, be good to them in return. If others are not, deal with it accordingly. Even though it was somewhat twisting the sage's words, Kaito still adhered to his own understanding when he acted. Moreover, he was not unfamiliar with the ancient family teaching of repay a drop of kindness with a spring, repay a broken tooth with a skull. The Nara clan was quite interesting. Once you get to know them and gain their approval, even if they complain about the trouble, they will still find ways to help you. This was the case with Naruto and Shikamaru in the original work, although every time Shikamaru was dragged into trouble by Naruto, he would do his best to help Naruto. And the quality of the Nara clan's shinobi has always been commendable. During the Chunin exam, when Shikamaru stayed behind alone, he had prepared himself for the possibility of death. Fortunately, Asuma arrived in time, otherwise Shikamaru might have really been done for. Actually, don't start with me. Have you forgotten that your Shikamaru and that brat from the Akimichi clan are skipping classes together? Kaito didn't want to linger on this topic and quickly shifted the conversation to matters concerning Yunako's family. In our school days, we didn't dare to skip classes. Your younger cousin is quite something. Humph, Shikamaru is my cousin, not my little brother. Why should I care about his family's affairs, troublesome or not? However, what Kaito didn't expect was that Yunako didn't bite, leaving him somewhat at a loss. Thankfully, Narayanako is not the type who insists on having her advice taken to heart. She was simply kindly reminding Kaito. If Kaito really didn't listen, she wouldn't bother nagging any further. After all, it's not her business, and if she said too much, everyone would be unhappy. All right, it's your business. Handle it as you see fit. But still, consider this a friendly reminder. Narayanako halted her steps and, after glancing at the surroundings, lowered her voice to the minimum when speaking to Kaito, even covering her mouth with her hand. I've heard some rumors, and I can also see for myself that the relationship between your clan and the village has been getting worse and worse. If possible, I suggest you avoid getting involved in your clan's affairs and find a long-term mission outside the village. Wait until then to see how things are before making some decisions. The words of Narayanako were quite cryptic, but Kaito, not being a fool, naturally understood what this young girl was implying. He hadn't expected Narayanako to give him such advice, but it has to be said that it was a very friendly suggestion indeed. As for the rumors Yunako had heard, they were probably based on a combination of some of Narashikaku's actions, and an analysis of the current internal environment of the village. Someone like Narashikaku would not easily leak information. Of course, it's also possible he wanted to do a favor for the Uchiha. But Kaito leaned more towards this being something Narayanako had analyzed herself. Being former teammates, he was aware of this young girl's capabilities. It has to be said that this analysis was very accurate, and her advice was also quite good. But the key problem is that Kaito can't just run away. Your suggestion, are you telling me, if possible, to leave the Konoha? Perhaps feeling the topic was too heavy, or perhaps because Kaito himself had plans and wasn't willing to take this up, he said in a joking tone to Yunako. It's up to you. After all, this is just a friendly suggestion of mine. You can take it or leave it. No one is forcing you. Narayanako glanced at Kaito, then continued walking forward without looking back. Hey, if you tell me this kind of thing, can I report you for inciting me to defect? Kaito caught up with her, chuckling as he asked quietly. Besides you and me, did anyone else hear? Narayanako raised an eyebrow, then looked at Kaito with a puzzled face. And what are you talking about? Something about defecting. After saying this, she continued walking forward, casually waving her hand at Kaito. I'm going home. Hope to see you again next time. Kaito watched the young girl's retreating figure, a slight smile appearing on his face. After a moment of thought, he suddenly shouted, "Thank you, Yunako." Then he too turned and walked towards the Uchiha clan grounds. Originally, his plan was to train, but now he felt a bit of urgency. He was more interested in returning to the clan to see how Shisui and the elder behind him were doing in their conversation. And as for training, Kaito thought it was better done with two people, especially considering his training partner could not be weak. What Kaito did not expect, however, was that when he just arrived at the entrance of the Uchiha clan, Shisui was already waiting there. Kaito, come with me. The elder wants to see you. All right, I understand. Chapter 27, Chapter 27. Following Shisui all the way to a residence within the Uchiha clan, Shisui nodded at Kaito at the door and opened it for him. Clearly, Shisui was going to stand guard outside, leaving the rest of the matters for Kaito to handle on his own. Kaito was quite surprised at Shisui's efficiency, having no idea what Shisui had discussed with the elder behind him. He also didn't know what this meeting would turn into, but he wasn't going to shy away from meeting them. With the Manjiki Sharingan, even though he hadn't had it for long, Kaito had definitely surpassed his former self. If he were to encounter any trouble, Kaito wouldn't mind using his own eyes to do something about it. While he didn't hope for a major conflict and was keen on resolving matters peacefully, this didn't mean that Kaito was afraid of trouble. He wouldn't evade his responsibilities. Besides, he couldn't escape now, for he had been kidnapped by his entire clan. Stepping slowly into the room, Kaito couldn't help but take in the surroundings with a sidelong glance, as it was his first time here and he was somewhat curious. The room wasn't large and appeared quite quaint. There were sliding doors on both sides, and in the middle hung a nin character, with no other decorations. The elder behind Shisui sat right beneath the nin character. If Kaito remembered correctly, this old man's name was Uchiha S. I just wonder if you have a brother named Uchiha Kai, or perhaps a superior named Uchiha Kai. I hope you have both. Kaito silently wished in his heart, then slowly stepped forward to stand in front of the elder. He didn't sit down but instead looked down at the old man from above. Upon seeing Kaito's posture, Uchiha couldn't help but frown. He suddenly felt that the young man before him was really impolite. However, just as this thought appeared, he involuntarily suppressed it within his heart. Indeed, Kaito's current behavior was truly impolite, but if what Shisui said was true, then he, Uchiha Kaito, indeed had the right to be impolite. Mangeki Sharingan, it's the Mangeki Sharingan. The whole clan, up until now, had only one person who possessed the Mangeki Sharingan, and that person was Uchiha Shisui. But now the situation was different. That friend who grew up and studied together with Shisui had also activated the Mangeki Sharingan. Shisui was nurtured from a young age by Uchiha, and they shared a deep bond. He believed that Shisui would not act rashly. However, Uchiha Kaito was a completely different story. This fellow had never chosen sides within the clan, and his way of doing things didn't resemble the Uchiha style at all. One might even say that he seemed to lack a sense of belonging to the clan. Yet, perhaps it was precisely this lack of belonging that allowed him to view everything about the clan from an outsider's perspective and identify the root of the problem. However, his way of handling things could be called heretical, even a rebellion, but the key point was that he had convinced Shisui to trust him. Thinking about this, Uchiha couldn't help but sigh deeply. Raising his head to look at the high and mighty Kaito, in the end, all he could do was speak softly, "Sit down, child." "Well then, thank you for your hospitality, elder." Kaito revealed a slight smile, then slowly sat down. In truth, Kaito wasn't exactly a domineering person, but he knew that there were times when he had to show a strong posture. Only in this way will others truly worry about you, fear you, and ultimately listen to you. This method is indeed quite common because recognition or even submission driven by fear is the most unreliable thing. If possible, Kaito would prefer to convince others with reason. However, all he could do now was to convince with physics. Shisui has already found me and told me a lot. Seeing Kaito sit down, Uchiha felt much better for a moment. The feeling of being looked down upon was truly terrible. However, Uchiha also knew that now was not the time to dwell on these things. He needed to get more information from Kaito. "Oh, what did he tell you?" Kaito couldn't help but raise an eyebrow when he heard this. "And, why did you hurry to find me, elder? Do you have something to say? I want to hear your plans." Uchiha did not want to beat around the bush with Kaito. He got straight to the point. "Shisui said that you plan to depose the clan leader, you want to reunite the family. This is an extremely dangerous idea, but I have to admit it is indeed a good idea for the family. So I want to hear, to understand what you plan to do, and what your ideas and plans are. Shisui hopes that I can help you, but if I'm to help, I need to at least see some hope, right? Just hoping to see hope?" Kaito did have a bit of belief in what Uchiha said, but it was only a tiny bit, because he knew that the old man definitely hadn't said everything. After carefully recalling the conversations he had had with Shisui along the way, Kaito began to feel a headache because he realized he had said too much. But after thinking it over, he guessed that what could have made this old man so compliant was probably nothing more than the Mangekyo Sharingan. With this thought, Kaito felt confident. He knew he was definitely on the dominant side, which would give him the upper hand. "Want to hear my plans and intentions?" Kaito revealed a smile, then slowly closed his eyes. In an instant, a stifling chakra filled with a destructive aura emerged from Kaito, a force that even Uchiha felt instilled fear in his heart. "All right, I understand the elder's meaning, but I think there is more you want to confirm than just that. I don't know exactly what Shisui told you, but I think the reason you wanted to meet me probably has to do with something. Something you are worried about yet desire, something that could change the Uchiha clan, right?" In the next moment, Kaito opened his eyes. His eyes had turned crimson, and within this redness, a triangular pattern was slowly rotating. That would be the Mangekyo Sharingan. You probably want to confirm, or rather, you are more eager to confirm, whether I also possess these eyes, aren't you? Chapter 28, Chapter 28. As Uchiha S looked at Kaito's Mangekyo, his heart was both thrilled and filled with a sense of helplessness. The thrill was of course that the Uchiha had gained another pair of Mangekyo, which greatly enhanced the strength of the clan. But the helplessness was due to this fellow Kaito, who was truly a potent yet immensely dangerous entity. If it was only that, it could be managed. Just offer more benefits, try to win him over, subtly mold and modify him. But the problem is, this young man's perspective and thinking have already determined that any such efforts would be in vain. Even Uchiha S had to admire the breadth of this young man's vision. Facing such an individual, what could Uchiha S do? He could only listen and watch attentively, then slowly ponder countermeasures. I don't know how much Shisui has told you, but what I want to say is, the clan must change. Just as Uchiha S was lamenting profoundly in his heart, Kaito slowly began to speak. The clan needs to unite. I've said this to Shisui, and now I'll say it again to you. Whether it's you or those on the other side, your division has made it impossible for the clan to function normally. We can't even handle the challenges Konoha is throwing at us now. And Uchiha Fugaku, this guy, even though he has good intentions, wanting to maintain the stability of the clan, but to still hold on to such ideas in these times. I have but one word to describe him: indecisive. He seems utterly ignorant of the current plight of the clan, not to mention what the clan truly needs right now. Moreover, think about it, what has Uchiha Fugaku actually accomplished in all his years as clan leader? Kaito didn't parrot every word he had said to Shisui, instead, he prompted Uchiha S to think in a different way. After all, Uchiha S is an elder, while Shisui is merely a clever, competent ninja. His perspective might significantly differ compared to that of an elder who's battled through the ranks of the clan for so many years. Indeed, under the control of the clan leader these past years, the clan Uchiha's side. Kaito's words had stimulated his thoughts. In fact, Uchiha Fugaku had done quite poorly over the years. Indeed, the clan is deteriorating day by day. Just look at where we are living now. We have been driven to the edge of the village. After the Nine Tails incident, the Konoha suffered destruction and needed to be rebuilt. And in the process of rebuilding, they pushed the Uchiha clan to the periphery of the village. This action has really stirred dissatisfaction among countless members of the Uchiha clan, and it is because of this that the number of supporters of the blood faction has started to increase. As the divide between the Konoha and the clan becomes more and more apparent, the number of people on their side is also increasing. However, we are not incapable of communicating with the Konoha. Shisui is now in the Anbu, we can build a bridge of communication with the Konoha through him. Yet after his lament, Elder Uchiha began to speak again, but his words were cut off before he could finish by Kaito. You are too naive, Elder. Kaito shook his head helplessly, lightly tapping the table before he spoke slowly. At your age, you should have experienced the second Hokage's era, and Elder Uchiha Kagami should have been with you then. I admit that the second Hokage taking Kagami as a disciple gave you hope, but is this really the case? What is the purpose of the existence of the police force? Can't you understand after all these years, Elder, even if Shisui can't? Kaito's words left Elder Uchiha speechless, for he couldn't answer this question, or rather, he simply couldn't afford to answer it. And now, his gaze towards Kaito had changed, the wide-eyed astonishment and shock clearly reflected his inner turmoil. With the police force in hand, following the Uchiha style and the village's propaganda, only more contradictions will accumulate between the Konoha and the Uchiha. Even if we perform our duties diligently, the advantage of public opinion lies with the Konoha, especially when you turn the police force into private property. The Konoha will only become more unbridled. You sent Shisui to be a bridge for communication, even Uchiha attack it went, but what is the reality? Both of them have just become double agents. Has your approach truly been effective? Kaito paused here, quietly observing Elder Uchiha, who had closed his eyes and was trembling incessantly. What this old man was thinking at this moment, Kaito didn't know, but he did know that he had firmly seized the initiative. So, what will you do if you succeed? After quite a while, Elder Uchiha finally opened his eyes, his face filled with bitterness. Speak, let this self-deceiving old man see what plans you, who are so highly esteemed by Shisui, truly have. Actually, my thoughts have always been simple, and I have always expressed them clearly. Seeing the current state of Uchiha-s, Kaito couldn't help but shake his head. Nevertheless, he still spoke unhurriedly. The clan needs unity. Shisui asked me what I would do if I were the clan leader. I told him that I would consolidate the power of the entire clan, unify everyone's thinking. I know what you're worried about, but I can tell you very clearly that I have never thought about instigating a civil war between the clan and the village. And I'm also very clear that once war breaks out, the clan is destined to perish. But if we keep compromising according to your thoughts, the fate of the clan won't be much better. A great man once said, "Seek peace through struggle, and there will be peace, seek peace through compromise, and there will be ruin." At this point, Kaito looked at Uchiha-s with utmost seriousness, and then he continued to speak. After consolidation, I will formulate our action program and political demands. I will let all clan members know what we want to do, what we want to get, where we can be aggressive, and what lines we must absolutely not cross. At the same time, I will let the village know what we want, and what we absolutely cannot accept. To seek peace through struggle brings peace, to seek peace through compromise brings ruin. And Uchiha-s was indeed moved by Kaito's words. He did not know which great man Kaito was quoting, but upon reflection, he found it to be utterly true. What did their compromises yield? In their hearts, they could foresee the outcome, but they had been harboring false hopes all along. I think, I understand your meaning. After a good while, Uchiha-s slowly began to speak. Then I'll ask you one last question, how do you plan to make Konoha hear our voice? In addition to the necessary firm stance, there are also some small tricks. Upon hearing Uchiha-s's words, Kaito couldn't help but laugh. Don't we have the security department? And isn't the security department letting us enjoy privileges while also carrying the burden of blame? What if we transform the security department into Konoha's security department, allowing all clans, civilian ninjas to join? Let everyone together enjoy this power, together bear this burden of blame. Then, our voices could spread throughout Konoha from within the security department, and would the third dare let us continue to be scapegoated? Chapter 29, Chapter 29. Silver moonlight illuminated the earth as Kaito leisurely walked out of Uchiha-s's room. As for what results the conversation with Uchiha-s would yield, truth be told, Kaito didn't know. Even though Uchiha-s seemed to waver now, making a final decision was not a simple matter for him. Their faction was a whole, to put it bluntly, an interest group with a common belief. It's hard to say whether they were the ones who refused to follow when Uchiha Itachi left years ago. Wanting them to change their beliefs was not an easy task. After all, they are not like Shisui. Shisui, at his age, still knows to rectify his errors when he's wrong. But for them, even if they knew, there always seemed to be an invisible hand pushing them from behind, making it impossible for them to change. They could only walk further into the darkness. Or perhaps their deep-seated beliefs did not permit them to change. They have persisted for a lifetime already. If they were to change just because of a few words, it would likely be too unrealistic. After all, everyone has some unyielding part within their hearts. Even if it's wrong, they still harbor a mentality of wishful thinking. Just like how I know my fondness for legs is somewhat odd, but I still can't change it. Kaito muttered quietly in his heart, then saw Shisui waiting at the entrance, which made him reveal a smile. "Thank you." Kaito walked over and directly began to speak, "You seem to be in a hurry." You can rest a bit before getting started. There's no time for rest. The clan's affairs are keeping me up at night. Shisui shook his head, his words serious. I heard all of your conversation, Kaito. You're really amazing. Looking at Shisui in this state, Kaito couldn't help but find it a bit amusing. He really didn't want to get involved in this troublesome business. You should know that if it weren't for this blasted system forcibly kidnapping him, he might have already fled from Konoha and hidden himself in a quiet place by now. On his free days, he could bask in the sun while reading Intimate Paradise, or perhaps go fishing by the river. Wouldn't that be relaxing and satisfying? How different it is from his current state, what with missions to eliminate Cloud and Mist Ninja, and then constantly playing the role of a political teacher to explain dialectical materialism to Shisui. Not only that, he has to act as a spiritual mentor, filling Shisui with motivational quotes and painting rosy pictures, and even playing the fortune teller to guide Shisui's prediction of the future. In addition to all this, he has to make plans, and upon his return, he has to meet this pesky elder to discuss the future. All these chaotic matters are so numerous and troublesome that, if it weren't for the sake of his own life, Kaito would be happy to leave them to anyone else. There's nothing amazing about it, it's all for the peace of the clan and the stability of the village. Even though he was unhappy inside, Kaito still knew how to say the right thing in public, but, I'll repeat what I said earlier, one must know when to relax. Constant tension will only make you more prone to breaking and shattering. Learning to rest is the real key. All right, but I might need to return to the Anbu in a few days. Shisui sighed slightly, before continuing, after I return to the Anbu, my time will be even more limited. Even if I wanted to quit the Anbu, it would take time to go through the procedures, which is why I'm in such a rush. Kaito had some understanding of just how busy the tasks in the Anbu were, even if he'd never been part of the Anbu himself. Looking at the frequent disappearances of Shisui and Atake was enough to understand. Moreover, their disappearances weren't a matter of just a few days. Sometimes it could be a week, or in longer cases, it could extend over a month. Now is a critical period for the clan, and once he returns to the Anbu, he'll be busy. There are many things he won't be able to handle, and he won't be able to see Kaito's actions in the coming days. You can imagine his inner anxiety. However, this is also something that can't be helped, it was his choice in the first place, who could he blame? In fact, Kaito had also considered using the most direct and violent means, such as using the Manjiki Sharingan with Shisui to declare martial law within the clan. He could take out all the disobedient people, and then force Uchiha Fugaku to abdicate. After all, there's an inherently submissive trait in the Uchiha clan, perhaps this approach could directly solve the problem. But the problem is, while such a method might allow him to seize power, the act of using force to make everyone submit, regardless of whether these people are willing or not, it's uncertain whether Shisui would agree. Even if Shisui agreed, the chain reaction brought about by Kaito's action is not something he's willing to face. A slap often has the greatest deterrent when it's being raised. Once it's actually delivered, all that's left is pain and resentment. This is why Kaito, even knowing this method is effective, basically didn't consider it, and even his desire to act against the spiritual leaders of the various factions within the clan is low. If time could be rewound a few years back, before the Night of the Nine Tails when Orochimaru was still in the village, Kaito would not hesitate to act against these people. After all, he could put the blame on Konoha and Orochimaru. Moreover, back then it was during the era of the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, who bore no ill will towards the Uchiha. Under his rule, the Uchiha lived fairly well. But now everything has changed, and he naturally can't act in the same way anymore. If Kaito were as cold, arrogant, and readily aggressive as Danzo, it would incite an instinctive resistance in everyone. Nobody likes to live in the shadow of fear, and this is irrespective of strength, it's simply human nature. Besides, such an approach won't win me people's hearts. How am I to start a revolution if people aren't united? The Mangeki Sharingan is not omnipotent after all. Kaito sighed inwardly, this is also why he's still following the rules for now. Of course, if the situation really evolves to a point of no return, then he won't bother about these complexities anymore. His own life is tied up with the clan now, how could he let them act recklessly? If they die, they die. If he dies, it's a huge loss. Rather than waiting for Konoha to act and kill everyone, Kaito would prefer to do it himself. At least if they die by his hand, they could be considered the foundation for the future prosperity of the clan. Thinking about this, Kaito's resolve strengthened. He had already had some thoughts previously, but after today's meeting, he had completely made up his mind. As the old saying goes, one should use courtesy before resorting to force. If you don't heed reason, then don't blame me. Take care of the matters concerning the Anbu as you see fit. If you decide to leave, then go ahead, Kaito spoke after pondering for a while, you've worked hard, Shisui. I know. I will handle these matters properly, Shisui earnestly nodded. Then, as he saw Kaito walking towards the outside, he couldn't help but curiously ask, where are you going this late? Naturally, I want to test my swordsmanship and abilities. Would you like to spar with me? I see, no wonder you're so strong. You've always been training diligently. No problem, I'll report back and then come. I'll be waiting for you at training ground 3. Oh, and remember to bring a ninja sword for me. Chapter 30. Though Kaito did think training in the middle of the night was quite eccentric, at this moment, he really couldn't sleep. Many things had happened since his return today, making it a bit hard for Kaito to digest all at once. First, he met his old teammate, Narayanako, who sneakily advised him to escape as soon as possible. Then he ran into the kid Naruto and even teased him a few times in passing. Finally, after returning, he was dragged to meet with Uchiha clan elder, resulting in a long conversation. One could say that he encountered quite a bit today, and aside from the kid Naruto, the rest required Kaito's serious contemplation. Moreover, he had planned to train intensively today. Since he couldn't sleep and Shisui happened to be around, Kaito simply decided to drag Shisui out to spar with him. This way, it can both foster our bond and allow me to adapt to my new abilities. Killing two birds with one stone, right? Murmuring to himself, Kaito quickly arrived at the third training ground. Perhaps due to the time, the training ground was now deserted, with moonlight illuminating the grounds and adding an extraordinary sense of tranquility. However, as Kaito stepped into the training ground, he suddenly furrowed his brows, sensing that something was amiss. Though Kaito had never been a sensory ninja, he had been through a decade and a half of all kinds of battles since his transmigration, so his sense of danger was remarkably keen. Halting his steps, Kaito began scanning his surroundings. He was actually curious, wondering who would be looking to give him trouble. Someone from the Uchiha clan? Unlikely. Although the internal strife is intense, they wouldn't just choose to attack randomly. Could it be someone from Konoha? But it seems I haven't provoked them. Wait. Kaito suddenly recalled something. He hadn't forgotten his encounter with Naruto today, though it was just a brief exchange of words. Could it be that Konoha is already this vigilant, or rather, is there hostility towards the Uchiha already at this point? Come out, don't make me nauseous like sewer rats. Thinking to himself, Kaito directly called out, but he had already prepared himself for a fight. Their sneaky trailing behind him made it hard for Kaito to believe they didn't have some ulterior motive. At the very least, they weren't likely to bear any goodwill. Unfortunately, Kaito's words didn't seem to elicit any response, which led him to question if his instincts had failed him. But Kaito wasn't about to let it go so easily. He took a deep breath, drew out several kunai, and in an instant, his eyes turned crimson red. His gaze swept across the area, trying to determine the most likely locations for someone to hide. With the aid of the Sharingan in just a moment, he pinpointed several spots. He didn't hesitate, swiftly flinging the kunao in his hand towards those places. This time, he didn't use any special techniques because there was simply no need for it. After all, this was Konoha, and Kaito couldn't go full out without a reason. Cling, cling, cling. The kunao quickly penetrated into those hiding spots. In the next moment, the sound of metal collisions, accompanied by sparks, flickered in the night sky. Alongside the continuous sounds, several figures suddenly leaped out from these hiding spots, and their emergence confirmed Kaito's suspicions. Because these individuals were collectively dressed in black ninja combat uniforms, their chests adorned with a piece of silver armor, and their faces concealed behind animal masks. Anbu? Kaito curiously asked. In fact, he wasn't sure if these people were from the Anbu, but he had a hunch that this likely had something to do with his encounter with Naruto today. Uchiha Kaito, you should come with us. At this moment, the leader of the Anbu, with an indifferent tone, spoke. His voice was akin to a machine, devoid of any emotion, and its icy chilliness caused Kaito to furrow his brows. If you want me to come with you, then perhaps you should make clear who you are. Kaito remained unaffected by the words of this individual. He had some things that he needed to confirm. Moreover, even if I were to go with you, you should give me a reason. We don't need a reason to carry out our duties. The Anbu member shook his head outright, his tone becoming even colder, uncomfortably chilling to the bone. You have two choices. 1. To come with us peacefully, or 2. We take you by force. Upon hearing this hardline stance, Kaito was taken aback for a moment, then couldn't help but laugh. Now, he was certain who these people in front of him were. He was well acquainted with Shisui, hence he naturally knew about the modus operandi of the Anbu. When the Anbu apprehended someone, it was always based on tangible evidence, they wouldn't lay a hand without giving a reason. However, there's one department that wouldn't care much for explanations, they apprehend without needing a reason. Even when they kill, they merely justify it with "you threatened Konoha's safety" and dismiss it, no reason needed for discussion. Thinking of this, Kaito's eyes started to turn dangerous. Danzo was one of the characters he loathed the most in the original storyline, bar none. Full of sanctimonious expressions, all rhetoric in speech, but all business in mind, probably nobody would like such a person. Upon this realization, Kaito wasted no more time in idle chatter, and immediately assumed a combat stance. Given his identity, he wouldn't be aware of the existence of Root, but this could serve to his advantage. He could frame those in front of him as imposters of the Anbu. It seems you haven't quite grasped my background, one of my friends happens to be a member of the Anbu. The three tomo in Kaito's eyes spun rapidly, the chakra within him primed and ready, and his voice began to deepen. The Anbu doesn't operate the way you do. While I'm not sure why you're doing this, impersonating the Anbu is a serious crime. It seems like you're not planning to come with us, hey? The leader eyed Kaito's movements, exhibiting no reaction, as if performing a routine task. He casually delivered a monologue, and lightly waved his hand. If that's the case, then kill him. As the words fell, the other Root ninjas didn't respond, but they practically rushed toward Kaito in unison almost instantly. Observing their aggressive stance, Kaito knew this matter probably wouldn't end peacefully. And him, who already disliked Danzo, at this moment detested Danzo, this troublemaker, even more. But since you sent your men to their deaths, don't blame me. Kaito thought to himself as the three tomo in his eyes spun faster and faster. He suddenly flashed a smile, ignoring the group of ninjas rushing toward him, he said softly. A bunch of beetle-like fools, today you'll get a proper taste of the power of the Uchiha. In an instant, the three tomo in Kaito's eyes merged into one, and the suppressed chakra brimming with a sense of destruction burst forth. Chapter 31, Chapter 31. The moment the Mangekyo Sharingan activated, Kaito experienced a feeling as though everything was within his grasp. In that moment, within his eyes, it seemed as though he could see through everything. The trajectory of each enemy's movement, the direction of their attack, even the force of their strikes and their thoughts, it seemed as if everything was transparent in his eyes. This sensation was incredibly marvelous, and Kaito now seemed to understand a bit more. Why during the Fourth Great Ninja War, when Uchiha Madara was reincarnated through Edo Tensei, he single-handedly took on the allied shinobi forces with only a pair of Sharingan, because he truly had that power. However, when Uchiha Madara took on the allied shinobi forces alone, he only used the power of 3 Tomo, and only used Taijutsu and Genjutsu. It wasn't until he was warmed up to a certain extent and chased off the battlefield by Temari's wind release that he started to use ninjutsu. Kaito could hardly imagine the level of Uchiha Madara, because it simply exceeded human limits. However, Kaito did not lack aspirations for the future. Although he was far behind Uchiha Madara at the moment, and he didn't have a brother, leaving him uncertain about the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. But as someone who has traveled through time, Kaito knew only too well what Uchiha Madara's evolution path was like. And he possessed something that Uchiha Madara did not, that was his love-hate relationship with the system cheat. If not for this cheat, he probably wouldn't have the Mangekyo Sharingan now, and according to what Narayanako said, he would have already made his escape by this moment. But because of this cheat, he was forced to stay, kidnapped by a clan on the verge of extinction, trying his utmost to save it. Shaking his head lightly, Kaito blocked out all thoughts in that instant and fully entered a state of combat. Originally, he intended to familiarize himself with the Mangekyo through training with Shisui. But now that someone had taken the initiative to trouble him, there was no need for any courtesy. Those eyes! The moment Kaito's Mangekyo appeared, the leading ninja's tone finally showed some changes. Kaito could sense his astonishment and unease, but unfortunately, he was wearing a mask, so Kaito couldn't see any of it. Die! Just then, the first root ninja had already rushed to Kaito's side, his ninja blade fiercely thrusting towards Kaito. And in that moment, the Mangekyo in Kaito's right eye began to spin rapidly, the power of reverse path subtly activating, and his body began to move. He had already seen through this guy's attack direction completely, so his body simply made a light pivot. However, it was precisely such a slight deviation that caused the root ninja's blade to completely miss Kaito. At some unknown time, a kunai suddenly appeared in Kaito's hand. In the instant he dodged this root ninja, he swung the kunai at an eerie angle towards him. Two figures crossed, the root ninja suddenly knelt on the ground, clutching his throat tightly, but blood continually oozed out from between his fingers. At this moment, another root ninja from the side was already making a swift follow-up move, viciously slashing his blade at Kaito. And again, Kaito slightly dodged, quickly throwing up the kunai in his right hand for his left to catch. Blood-red eyes gazed at this root ninja, and suddenly this one too stiffened, as the kunai held swiftly in Kaito's left hand pierced through his chest. In just a few short seconds, Kaito had already taken down two root ninjas. This efficiency caused a chill in the remaining root ninjas. Every root ninja had gone through cruel training, those who could execute official missions were elites among the elites. They had no thoughts of their own, no emotions left, they were all ninjas named tools, they were all killing machines. In their eyes, there was only the mission, nothing else mattered. However, such tools were consecutively taken down so nonchalantly by a boy who looked to be only 15 or 16. This caused some involuntary shock to their inner selves, although they clearly were not going to abandon their mission. Their halt was not to stop their attack, but to change their strategy. And Kaito was more than happy to see what they planned to do. Besides, he found the effect of the reverse path to be more useful than he had imagined. Although my original physical technique wasn't bad, it really wasn't easy to reach this level. But now I can easily do all this. Reverse path is indeed similar to the sage mode as I thought. Under the blessing of this jutsu, I indeed received an overall enhancement. After seeing this jutsu, Kaito had conjectured inwardly, but he had no opportunity to use it, so the conjecture could only remain a conjecture. Practice is the sole criterion for testing truth. Kaito understood this clearly. And with his usage, he also noticed a detail. That is, it seemed like a very special power was quietly flowing in his eyes, and the speed at which this power was consumed was not as great as he imagined. Is this the eye power? Kaito guessed silently to himself. But he could affirm that this power should be the legendary eye power. The waning and consumption of eye power can blind the Mangekyo Sharingan. Kaito couldn't afford to ignore this point. However, he found that the mere use of Mangekyo Sharingan, or the use of reverse path in conjunction with physical techniques and genjutsu, didn't seem to consume as much as he had imagined. This was absolutely good news for Kaito, but he still needed continuous experimentation to figure out the tolerance limit of reverse path. The most important thing is to observe the usage in conjunction with other ninjutsu, along with the skills that I possess, and how it combines with Susanoo. Only then can I understand everything. Reverse path, this eye jutsu, according to the feedback of the Mangekyo Sharingan, can strengthen all jutsus. The skills that Kaito gained through the system were, to some extent, localized, hence reverse path could naturally be used in conjunction with these skills. Similarly, eye jutsu is also classified within the category of jutsu. The eye jutsu of his other eye is the Tsukuyomi. This ability can reduce the difficulty of using Susanoo. Kaito could already feel that within his consciousness space, there seemed to be a voice constantly calling out to him. Especially after he activated the Mangekyo Sharingan, this voice had become even more apparent. He knew that this was probably his inner guardian deity, his Uchiha Kaito's guardian deity, his Susanoo. But now is not the time to summon Susanoo, the key is to quickly dispose of these enemies in front of me. As he was thinking, those root shinobi had already repositioned and encircled Kaito. The very next second, they swiftly surrounded Kaito. Their encirclement this time was distinctly layered. Regardless of the perspective, they had mutual coordination and support. Nice formation, but it seems you've mistaken one thing. Kaito, looking at everything before him, suddenly revealed a smile. I'm not your average Uchiha. With his words dropping, the chakra inside his body surged vigorously. At this moment, he stood there like an Asura. Chapter 32, Chapter 32. Facing a typical Uchiha, encirclement indeed is the best way to handle them. Because in a one-on-one situation, it's really hard for anyone to cope with the Sharingan. Unless someone can manage not to look at the eyes without affecting their attack, or like the shinobi of the hidden mist, directly apply the hiding in mist technique to block the Sharingan. Therefore, in most cases, encircling is the best method when facing a shinobi with the Sharingan. However, regrettably, as Kaito said, he is not an average Uchiha, he is an Uchiha who possesses the Mangekyo Sharingan. Choosing not to use the sky dance technique to evade, Kaito facing at least more than 10 root shinobi alone, seems somewhat perilous. But oddly, Kaito truly doesn't feel any pressure. Even though they are all elite from the root, and their combat skills are not weak either. Under the insight of the Mangekyo Sharingan, all of them have nowhere to hide. With the help of reverse path, Kaito's speed has also increased by more than a notch. Hum, hum, hum. The sound of ninja blades slicing through the air keeps echoing. In such intense close quarters combat, although Kaito seems to be at a disadvantage, in reality, he hasn't received any injuries at all. He moved like a butterfly weaving through flowers, ceaselessly dancing among the myriad of blades. His movements were graceful and comfortable, narrowly dodging the lethal edges every time, repeatedly rendering his enemies' attacks ineffective. However, endlessly evading was definitely not Kaito's style. He was waiting for the right moment, waiting for that perfect opportunity to strike back. And such an opportunity didn't make Kaito wait too long. When the prolonged attack was not successful, those root shinobi began to grow restless, and this was Kaito's chance. Ah! Simultaneously seeing through the trajectories of all root shinobi attacks, Kaito made a clever evasive move, immediately avoiding the range of all their attacks. His left hand suddenly drew out a kunao, then with a swift and lightning-fast motion, he directly thrust the kunao into the chest of a root shinobi who was attacking him. A harsh cry echoed across the training field. Accompanied by this scream, Kaito's right hand grabbed the hand of another root shinobi. With the assistance of the reverse path, Kaito's strength also received a boost. Under his control, this root shinobi's hand was firmly held down. Moreover, Kaito noticed the kunao in this guy's hand, and he abruptly twisted it, the sound of breaking bones resounding abruptly by his side. The next moment, Kaito's body swiveled. Under his guidance, the root shinobi's broken hand holding the kunao brutally stabbed into another shinobi's chest. Wind release, great breakthrough. A root shinobi instantly seized the opportunity behind Kaito, not caring about his own teammates, and immediately unleashed his ninjutsu. Weak. However, as soon as the gale howled, Kaito merely glanced back, and his whole person had already leaped backward, perfectly evading this technique. However, a few root shinobi on the side didn't react in time and were directly blown away. As they just fell to the ground, Kaito's kunao was already flying over. The smell of blood in training ground number 3 was getting heavier. Only in a few short minutes, under the siege of these root elites, Kaito was unscathed, but several elite root shinobi had already fallen under his hand. The lead root shinobi was also besieging Kaito, but as he watched Kaito, who moved like a butterfly weaving through flowers, his feelings were extremely complex. As a team captain, the leading shinobi naturally had access to more information and data. Especially regarding Dan's various actions toward the Uchiha, these root shinobi naturally went to understand the Uchiha. He knew that Kaito's eyes were Manjiki Sharingan, but what kind of power the Manjiki Sharingan truly possessed, he did not know. After all, the Manjiki Sharingan had been lost for so long, he hadn't truly witnessed such power. But now, it seemed he was beginning to understand. So, this is the power of the Manjiki Sharingan? Facing enemies many times his own number, even when besieged and restricted in movement, he still demonstrated an effortless demeanor. He saw through and evaded anyone's attack, and even retaliated. Such insight is truly incomparable to the 3 Tomo Sharingan. And just then, Kaito suddenly grabbed a root shinobi who was attacking him. He tightly gripped this guy's throat but didn't kill him immediately. "Lend me your blade for a moment." As the Manjiki lightly rotated, a root shinobi raising his blade inadvertently met Kaito's gaze and immediately froze on the spot. The long sword in his hand was easily taken away, and with a slash, blood splashed. Having obtained the ninja blade, Kaito did not immediately attack, instead, he suddenly stopped. Gently flicking the fresh blood off the ninja blade in his hand, Kaito's gaze swept over the root shinobi before him, and he spoke in a calm voice. "I've been playing with you for quite some time, I suppose that's enough, this farce should come to an end." Farce, that was Kaito's definition of this combat, a definition that completely disregarded these root shinobi. The leader of the root was having some changes in his expression. He didn't know what Kaito was planning next, but he knew that trouble was coming. At this point, he already had thoughts of retreat. Kaito was such a tough opponent, possessing such unique eyes, he believed that such intelligence must be relayed back. Yet, just then, Kaito's body started to drift upwards, which instantly made all surviving root shinobi realize, this guy even had flight ninjutsu. This realization made them understand even more that if he really wanted to escape, they had no means to stop him. Flying in the sky, Kaito held the ninja blade in his mouth, his hands started to form seals quickly, and concurrently, the Manjiki in his right eye spun rapidly once again. Fire release, Great Dragon Fire Technique. Vast chakra surged overwhelmingly towards the surviving root shinobi, and the next moment, 3 colossal fire dragons suddenly sprang from the ground. These 3 fire dragons were exceptionally massive, completely beyond their understanding of this fire release ninjutsu. They had never seen such gigantic great fire dragons before. The most fatal part was that these 3 fire dragons had completely sealed their escape routes. I said the farce is ending. Just as these root shinobi were forced to huddle together, Kaito's voice echoed from the sky. He stood atop the sky, single-handedly lifting the blade over his head, and the chakra within his body began to ripple at this moment. That sharp, deadly aura-filled chakra immediately made it clear it was wind release, but the combination of wind release and sword technique left people clueless about what Kaito intended to do. Just then, Kaito suddenly started to laugh. Have you ever felt the blade of Mikela? In the next second, Kaito plunged down like a water bird. The ninja blade in his hand transformed into a gorgeous and elegant gloss, countless wind blades wildly soaring around him. Secret Art, Waterfowl Dance. Chapter 33, Chapter 33. The sharp blade, accompanied by terrifying wind blades, scoured the earth. Even the fire dragons previously released by Kaito had already crumbled under these fierce wind blades. Kaito landed on the ground, behind him lay the completely shattered root shinobi. Under the cutting of the waterfowl dance, whether these root shinobi could still be pieced into a complete person, Kaito was not too sure. However, what he was certain of was that, under his attack, not a single one of these guys could escape. Waterfowl dance, as the technique that had caused Kaito to die the most times in his past life playing video games, he had quite an insight into the power of this sword technique. Moreover, this was reality, not a game. In the game, one could respawn, and even after being slashed by the blade so many times, one didn't see the body being split apart. But now, under Kaito's blade, those root shinobi were directly dismembered. Unless they had eaten the Barabara no Mi like Buggy, there was absolutely no chance for those bodies broken into pieces to survive. The only thing to worry about now is whether someone didn't join in, but instead is observing from a distance. Of course, this is not a big deal either. Even if someone hadn't joined in, witnessed Kaito taking out this large group of root, but Kaito was the real victim. If he was caught or killed, then there would be no follow-up to this incident. The Uchiha clan might be forced into rebellion, which is probably the last thing that Konoha would want to see. As a village, they cannot openly act against the families within the village. After all, the establishment of the village cannot be separated from the support of these major clans. If you act against the Uchiha today, will you act against the Hyuga, or the likes of Inoshikacho tomorrow? Even though the split between the Uchiha and Konoha is severe, don't the heads of these major clans see how the Uchiha were ultimately isolated? They absolutely can't be the first to take action, they must have an appropriate reason to do so, and ideally, it should be the Uchiha clan themselves who take the first move. For instance, if a certain Uchiha ninja suddenly went mad and slaughtered his whole clan, then Konoha would at least not be directly linked to it on the surface. But now that Kaito has survived, the trouble naturally falls on those in the root. Being inexplicably attacked, and the attackers are not from the Anbu, then it's clear to everyone who is behind this. Don't think that at this point, root can still play the victim. Look at the bodies cut up on the ground, and you'll know just how many people came. If it was just a normal invitation for Kaito to have a cup of tea, would there be any need for so many people to come together? Even from the traces left at the scene, it's clear this was hardly a friendly invitation to have a tea. And moreover, with the commotion I've caused, I fear someone will soon be coming over. I'm curious to see how you're going to clean up this mess. Although Kaito unleashed a fire release with the intention of leaving the root ninja with nowhere to escape, he wasn't foolish. He knew exactly how to attract attention and place himself on the moral high ground as an innocent victim. In fact, he was already pretty upset. He had only interacted briefly with Naruto, and his demeanor wasn't even similar to the others. Why on earth did they bother him in the dead of night? If he had deeper interactions with Naruto, would they blatantly hunt him down? Also, why hasn't Shisui shown up yet? Kaito muttered silently in his heart. Soon, he became too lazy to ponder over these things. All he had to do now was wait for Shisui to arrive. However, during this waiting period, Kaito would also take the time to review his previous battles and assess the status of his Mangekyo Sharingan. This battle was the first time he had fully utilized the Mangekyo Sharingan in combat, and Kaito had reaped considerable benefits. The reverse path eye technique was indeed as Kaito had anticipated, it was able to amplify even the sky dance technique given by the system. Moreover, when applied to ninjutsu, the enhancement was visibly substantial. Kaito was confident that as his proficiency with the Mangekyo increased, he would soon be on par with Uchiha Madara. The simple application of fire release, great fire annihilation left countless ninjas helpless against him, and with his sky dance technique, he was truly developing into a strategic bombing powerhouse. However, when using reverse path with ninjutsu, the consumption of the eye technique starts to increase. Although it is within my tolerance, it also reminds me not to be reckless. In fact, after this use, Kaito had noticed that the consumption of the eye power was not as rapid as he had imagined. Furthermore, when he activated the Mangekyo separately without using the eye technique, the consumption of his eye power was almost negligible. Though there is the danger of the accumulation of little amounts, he should be able to use it for many years as long as he doesn't follow in the footsteps of Uchiha Sasuke. Look at Uchiha Itachi, his eyes have been in use for so long and have not yet become blind, and then look at Uchiha Madara, the man held out for so many years in a hard fight against Senju Hashirama. Therefore, the rational use of the eye technique is crucial, and Kaito is also confident that his problem system will probably help him solve this. If this problem can't be solved, what's the point of me being bound to this clan? Kaito still has faith in the system's capabilities. At least through its unique way, he experienced a massive mental stimulation without any impact on his physical state. This stimulation allowed him to activate the Mangekyo and gain the power he now holds, and just for this, the system deserved Kaito's trust. Furthermore, according to the system's quirks, it seemed to prefer granting skills from the League of Legends game as rewards to Kaito. With this in mind, the chances of Kaito obtaining the eternal Mangekyo are indeed quite high. After all, there are numerous passive abilities in that game that can enhance one's abilities or evolve an ability separately. Not just enhancements, but even resurrection exists in it. Even though you turn into an egg, you still get resurrected in the end. Moreover, after activating the Mangekyo this time, I can feel the power in my other eye stirring, and indeed, I can sense the existence of Susanoo. Susanoo, arguably the most powerful force of the Uchiha clan, and in Kaito's view, this power is unparalleled in its perfection. Although the Mangekyo can manifest a plethora of inexplicable powers, the power of space is indeed enviable. If we're talking about the ultimate destructive power and the ultimate defensive power, Susanoo claims to be the second, and Kaito genuinely can't think of who could claim to be the first. It seems I must give my Susanoo serious consideration from now on. I can reduce the difficulty of activating it myself, and I also have reverse path to enhance its power. If I don't seize this opportunity well, I would truly be letting down my own abilities. Kaito pondered in silence, and just then, he noticed that Shisui was rushing towards him from not far away. And it wasn't just him, many Konoha ninjas were hurrying over behind him. Chapter 34, Chapter 34. What's going on? Having returned home, Sarutobi Hiruzen heard the uproar coming from outside, causing him to furrow his brow. The Hokage's work is extremely busy, there's no doubt about that, especially since Sarutobi Hiruzen is a man of great confidence. He believes he can manage every aspect of Konoha with perfect order, so almost all of the village's documents pass through his hands, allowing him to make judgments. Undoubtedly, thanks to this approach, even though he's not the strongest Hokage in the history of Konoha, he definitely holds more power than most. Perhaps only his teacher, the second Hokage, was stronger than him. In recent years, Sarutobi Hiruzen has had much to deal with, particularly since he asked Hyuga Hayashi to give up Hyuga Hisashi, after which his work became incredibly hectic. On the one hand, he had to make various efforts to restore Konoha's credibility. His decision regarding Hyuga Hisashi had affected Konoha's reputation in the entire ninja world. This blow also led to a drastic drop in the share of missions for Konoha, and Sarutobi Hiruzen had to work hard to restore Konoha's image in the ninja world. On the other hand, there was pressure from the Hyuga clan. In fact, not only the Hyuga clan, but probably every ninja clan in the village had some reservations about him in their hearts. To put it bluntly, there's even a certain hostility. If he dared to take action against the Hyuga clan this time, who knew whose head the butcher's knife would fall on next time? The death of one can cause sorrow for another, this is inevitable. However, Sarutobi Hiruzen was not without solutions. To keep Konoha peaceful and these clans in check, the best method would be to make an example of one. What could be more deterring than the disappearance of an unstable major clan, especially one which he himself didn't favor and for which he had ample information? However, such an act, as the Hokage, he absolutely couldn't commit. Moreover, in order to maintain the village's stability, he had to show his willingness to compromise from all aspects. Hence, at this point, the value of Danzo became entirely apparent. Although all of this stemmed from him surrendering Hyuga Hisashi as a compromise, he did not regret his actions. He was very clear about the choice between war and peace. If temporary weakness and compromise could give Konoha a chance to recover, he would not hesitate even more. For Konoha, even if it means bearing the brunt of criticism, this old man can accept it. Knock, knock, knock. Just then, the door to Sarutobi Hiruzen's room was knocked. Quickly, an ANBU ninja, after obtaining his permission, briskly walked in. This ANBU ninja had silver hair. Wearing a mask, he kneeled on one knee upon entering, and said in a calm and low voice, "Hokage-sama, there has been a fire at Training Ground 3, and it was caused intentionally." Caused intentionally? Sarutobi Hiruzen furrowed his brows, then he continued to ask. "You should have received more information. Tell me, let me know what exactly is going on." "Yes, Hokage-sama." This ANBU ninja nodded, then he continued to speak. "According to the information, someone launched an attack on Uchiha Kaito of the Uchiha clan. However, those people were all taken down by Uchiha Kaito. Many ninjas from Konoha have already rushed over. According to the description from the scene, the ones who were taken down were a group of people disguised as ANBU. Uchiha Kaito was attacked? Had this youngster returned? And there were people disguised as ANBU? Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen realized that something was amiss. His eyebrows furrowed deeper. "Apart from this, is there any other information?" "Yes, Hokage-sama." The ANBU operative continued to speak. "According to the information, today Uchiha Kaito was seen dining at Ichiraku Ramen and had a conversation with Naruto." As he said this, the ANBU operative stopped, and Sarutobi Hiruzen understood the whole picture. The so-called people disguised as ANBU were in fact operatives from the root. Danzo was just trying to put pressure on Uchiha. There were ANBU operatives within the Uchiha, but the ANBU's way of doing things was completely different from that of the root. Even if the Uchiha determined that the root had made a move, if Kaito had gone missing without a trace, everything could be denied. And the Uchiha, having suffered such a huge injustice, might take some radical action. And that would be Konoha's opportunity to intervene. It might even lead to a split within the Uchiha between those who were peace-loving and those who were more assertive. However, while the idea was nice, the reality was brutal. The people Danzo sent were all taken down, which was indeed troublesome. "I see." Sarutobi Hiruzen rubbed his temples in frustration, then stood up and said, "In that case, I'll go and see for myself." "Yes, Hokage-sama." The ANBU operative nodded, standing up and preparing to leave, only to be called back by Sarutobi Hiruzen. "Did Danzo go?" "He had already left when I arrived." "What's the situation over there?" "It seems, a standoff has already formed. Kaito, are you sure about what you said? Upon his arrival, Shisui looked at the shattered corpses on the ground and the clothing on the mangled bodies. He couldn't help but swallow. He couldn't quite determine how many people were lying on the ground since the bodies were too terribly torn apart. Still, he knew there had to be more than 10 people here. Over 10 people were taken down by Kaito alone, and they died so horrifically, which says a lot about the terrifying strength of Kaito. What's most alarming is their attire. These people were obviously dressed as ANBU. Not just Shisui, but the large group of Konoha ninja who arrived with him were stunned. Some of them had already subtly surrounded Kaito. To attack ANBU so harshly would not be a pleasant thing within Konoha, it could even be considered extremely malicious. However, after Kaito explained the situation, Shisui and the other ninjas couldn't help but furrow their brows. What else could it be? Kaito shrugged, his expression helpless. You're an ANBU, I naturally understand some of the ANBU's operational guidelines. And if these guys really had an issue with me, they wouldn't have sent so many people. Clearly, they were prepared to attack. Indeed. Kaito's words made Shisui nod in agreement. Likewise, the surrounding ninjas sighed in relief. Even those who hadn't had dealings with the ANBU understood one thing. Such a large group coming together was obviously not a simple matter of questioning or investigation. A team of this scale clearly aimed to corner someone to death. Everyone, step back. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Following that, a cold old man, his body wrapped in bandages, strode in. Upon seeing this man, both Kaito and Shisui couldn't help but furrow their brows. Although they had different reasons for their displeasure, it was evident that neither of them liked this old man. This old man was Danzo Shimura. Danzo Shimura swept his gaze over everything around him, and his expression also became unsightly. He then glared coldly at Kaito and Shisui and growled. Uchiha Kaito, you attacked the Konoha's ANBU with such severity. Are you truly a shinobi of Konoha? And who are you, spouting off here? Kaito raised an eyebrow at Danzo's words, disregarding Shisui's attempts to stop him, and retorted disdainfully. Whether I'm a shinobi of Konoha or not isn't for you to decide, is it? Whether it's up to me or not, you can give it a try. All of you, listen to my command, seize him. Danzo seemed to have grown angry at Kaito as well, and he directly ordered all the ninjas present to take action. However, unfortunately, Danzo Shimura was just Danzo Shimura. As the leader of the foundation, he rarely made public appearances. This resulted in the majority of the shinobi present hardly recognizing him. Under such circumstances, how could they heed Danzo's words? At this moment, Kaito couldn't help but reveal a mocking smile. Just then, the chakra within his body began to surge, and his eyes turned blood red. Giving commands like a barking dog, without understanding the circumstances, without clarifying what has actually happened. Who do you think you are, the Hokage? Chapter 35, Chapter 35. Do you think you are the Hokage? Kaito's words were brimming with mockery, and they silenced Danzo directly while igniting an inferno in his heart. Already in a bad mood due to the loss of more than 10 of his men, Danzo's fury was fully kindled by Kaito's provoking words. Hokage, it was always Danzo's dream, yet it was something he had struggled to attain and had failed. For the position of Hokage, he even went so far as to attempt to assassinate his old friend, Hiruzen Sarutobi. But he could never forget that day when he sat proudly on the Hokage's seat, fantasizing about Konoha's prosperous future under his leadership. His old friend Hiruzen Sarutobi silently came up behind him, and then, with an incredibly serious, yet seemingly casual tone, he said to Danzo. Danzo, you've overstepped. I am the Hokage. The sentence was delivered very calmly, but it etched deeply into his heart. He knew that he could probably never ascend to the Hokage's seat as long as Hiruzen Sarutobi was alive. And today, this cursed Uchiha brat dared to utter such words in front of everyone. How could Danzo not be furious? How could he not be thrown off guard? It seems that he really doesn't have a chance to be Hokage, but this is not something a Uchiha brat can freely judge. Furious to the extreme, Danzo at this moment became strangely calm. His single exposed eye coldly stared at Kaito. His tone, icy as frozen steel, sent chills down the spine. The truth of the matter is what I have seen. You killed so many Anbu and still want to shirk responsibility? Indeed, I am not the Hokage, but I am a ninja of Konoha, and for Konoha, I must apprehend you, even eliminate you. Take him down. With the end of Danzo's words, the root ninja that came with him collectively took action. This scene made all the Konoha ninjas at the scene frown involuntarily, and Shisui's face also began to look unsightly. But Kaito looked at Danzo with some surprise. This guy seemed calm, but was he actually blinded by anger? More than 10 root ninjas had assaulted him, and their ultimate fate was total annihilation. Now, just 3 root ninjas formed a small team. Did they really think they could take him down? Or is he certain that in front of so many people, I wouldn't dare to start a massacre? This possibility flashed quickly in Kaito's mind, and what left him slightly speechless was, if the other party really just wanted to apprehend someone, then if he had a murderous intent, that would be troublesome indeed. Or one could say that acting that way would be falling right into this old man's trap. But now when he was being openly attacked, how could Kaito just stand there and take it? Gripping the ninja sword in his hand, Kaito decided to respond first and see what happened next. If the other party just wanted to apprehend someone, he would respond normally. If they harbored malicious intent, Kaito would teach them a lesson. Hey! However, to Kaito's surprise, before he even had a chance to act, Shisui had already rushed up. His ninja sword, sheathed at his side, was instantly unsheathed. Then, using a body flicker technique, he engaged in a battle with the 3 root ninjas. Seeing this, Kaito couldn't help but frown. Shisui was acting impulsively. This was definitely not a good thing, as he was a member of the Anbu. Even if there had always been a certain degree of conflict between the Anbu and Root, at least they wouldn't clash in any way. Moreover, it was still okay for Kaito to take action, because Kaito was someone who was completely unaware of the existence of Root. But Shisui's situation was a bit special and problematic. With a helpless shake of his head, Kaito instantly entered the battle. This fight was nothing like the previous one. Earlier, Kaito could kill without any restraint, but this time in front of so many people, with the opponents clearly identifying themselves as Konoha ninjas. If Kaito were to act without any consideration, especially when the other party had not acted, then the one who would be in trouble would be him. However, both Kaito and Shisui were powerhouses of the Mangeki level. Even if they did not fully unleash their powers, and there was absolutely no coordination between them. But each of them locking onto a target, while simultaneously constraining another opponent, that they could definitely do. With such cooperation, they were evenly matched with these 3 root ninjas for a while. In fact, Kaito could see that although the 3 of them coordinated exquisitely, they were very uncomfortable fighting under such constraints. Moreover, Kaito also noticed that their positions might not be low. Earlier, Dans had already said even able to kill you. But they hadn't killed, their attitude was clearly to apprehend. If they did not have a certain status and a certain level of judgment, it would not be a back and forth between the 2 parties now, but a genuine battle. Halt! What are you all doing? Suddenly, a thunderous rebuke came from afar. Hearing this voice, Kaito and Shisui looked at each other involuntarily, then they quickly stepped back. And the 3 root ninjas also stopped. Ultimately they silently returned to Dan Shimura's side. Because the person who came this time was the 3rd Hokage of Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen Sarutobi sternly walked over to this training ground. The fire had already been put out by other Konoha ninjas when they arrived. However, this place now could no longer be called a training ground, it was essentially a purgatory. But Hiruzen Sarutobi was after all a Hokage who had weathered through wars. He glanced at the shattered corpses on the ground. Although this made him frown involuntarily, he could still maintain his composure. Finally, his gaze fell on Kaito. "Tell me, what exactly is going on, and whose corpses are these on the ground?" "About this matter, allow me to explain, Hokage-sama." Before Kaito could speak, Shisui stepped forward first. He respectfully bowed to Hiruzen Sarutobi, and then slowly began. "Hokage-sama, originally Kaito invited me to meet him at the training ground tonight. He wanted to practice his swordsmanship. Naturally, I did not refuse the invitation, but by the time I arrived, the event had already taken place, and Kaito had fully explained everything to me." Shisui didn't speak quickly, but his words were clear and organized. It was clear that his career in the Anbu had taught him how to report most effectively and succinctly. Kaito listened from the side, nodding inwardly. He also noticed that as Hiruzen Sarutobi arrived, the number of Konoha ninjas surrounding the scene increased. Not only civilian ninjas, but also clan ninjas had already rushed over. Kaito even saw Higa Hayashi and Uchiha Fugaku. "It seems I've unintentionally created a spectacle." Kaito couldn't help but find it a bit amusing inside. However, this was good. The more people present, the safer Kaito would be. And the people present weren't foolish. With the occurrence of this scene tonight, especially Dan Shimura's slightly clumsy performance, each of the clans probably had their own considerations now. Especially the Uchiha, they were likely to have more thoughts and debates. Chapter 36, Chapter 36. "That's how it happened, Lord Hokage. That's all." After Shisui had finished recounting all the information Kaito had told him, he silently retreated to Kaito's side and said no more. Hiruzen Sarutobi now truly felt a bit of a headache. This matter really was as he had suspected, and what was crucial was that Dan Shimura was indeed a little clumsy this time. Perhaps he was indeed well-intentioned. After all, any Uchiha approaching the Nine Tails would alert any of them. The events that occurred 8 years ago still seemed vivid as if they happened yesterday. The Sharingan in the eyes of the Nine Tails still seemed incredibly clear. No one hoped that the Uchiha would have any contact with the Nine Tails again. No one wanted another Nine Tails incident to occur within Konoha. However, their methods of dealing with such things were different. If it were Hiruzen Sarutobi, they would slowly observe, then find a way to let the village know that the Sharingan could control the Nine Tails. This could effectively make people even more afraid of the Uchiha, at the same time growing more resentful of the Uchiha, even more suspicious of them. But Dan's did not. He saw this as an opportunity, a chance that could very likely drive the Uchiha to extremes, so he acted without hesitation. However, it's a pity that Dan's failed, which made Hiruzen Sarutobi very passive. It seems that everyone has underestimated this Uchiha Kaito, underestimated this genius who was once on par with Shisui. Glancing silently at Kaito, Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't help but sigh inwardly. He also hadn't expected Kaito's strength to be so formidable. More than a dozen root ninjas were all dismembered by him. You must understand, these were the elite of root. Originally, he was considering using the relationship between Shisui and Kaito to see if he could plant another line within the Uchiha. After all, Kaito's past performance was truly excellent. However, now, after Dan's maneuver, he felt that this possibility probably didn't exist anymore. "I understand." Although Hiruzen Sarutobi felt quite uncomfortable inside, he still maintained a stern demeanor. He looked at Kaito and then asked seriously. "Is everything that Shisui said true, Kaito Jonin?" "Yes, Lord Hokage." Since he was asked, Kaito also stepped forward decisively. He nodded and then said solemnly. "Everything Shisui said is true. Moreover, the bodies of those guys are right here. Lord Hokage, you can remove their masks to check if they are members of the Anbu, or..." At this point, Kaito suddenly showed a hint of anger, though, of course, this was just for Hiruzen Sarutobi to see. Or we could ask the Yamanaka clan elders to examine the memories in these guys' heads. Since everyone is here now, this can also validate what I've said and let me know exactly which filthy rat is plotting against me. Once Kaito finished speaking, he was laughing internally. He was obviously taking this opportunity to deliberately make Dan's uncomfortable. Sure enough, a slight change came over Dan's face at this time. Even if these root ninjas were dead, this would make the information in their brains less, and Dan's didn't even give them too many secrets. Their membership in Root itself was the biggest secret. If this is publicly exposed, the trouble would be significant indeed. Hiruzen Sarutobi also stiffened slightly when he heard Kaito's proposal, but he was the Hokage, and he would not lose his composure under any circumstances. After a brief moment of thought, he knew what to do. The investigation is a must. If what you're saying is correct, then these guys are probably not the ninjas from our village. Their ability to freely enter the village certainly involves many issues. We need to carefully investigate this, and it's not something to be taken lightly. Hiruzen Sarutobi defined the matter with a simple sentence. His words were watertight. He first acknowledged Kaito's argument and then negated Kaito's suggestion. However, after saying these words, Hiruzen Sarutobi seriously looked at Kaito, as if the shift between kindness and severity was just a thought away for him. But Kaito, I remember that you've already been a Jainin for a year. I understand that you are furious about what has happened. However, as a Jainin, when you encounter an enemy, especially one that has infiltrated our village, you actually didn't leave a single one alive, and you not only killed them all but also destroyed the bodies in this manner. Do you know how much trouble this has caused us in investigating where these enemies actually came from? Though the dead can provide us with intelligence, it's nowhere near as useful as a live person. Hiruzen Sarutobi's words were resounding and forceful, leaving Kaito dumbstruck. Sometimes, Kaito thought he was shameless enough, but compared to Hiruzen Sarutobi, he realized he was still quite naive. The practice of giving a date and then immediately striking with a stick was quite common. But the key point was, Hiruzen Sarutobi managed to turn the tables with just a few words and swing the stick at Kaito, which was truly impressive. Hiruzen Sarutobi's words also caused the surrounding Konoha ninjas to nod in agreement, indeed they thought that Kaito's actions were too excessive. Even though you are a genius of the Uchiha, even though you are incredibly skilled, wouldn't it be better to leave one alive rather than reducing the bodies to such a state? Kaito could fully imagine that, with Hiruzen Sarutobi's narrative, the Uchiha clan might gain yet another label of brutality. I'm very sorry, Lord Hokage, my swordsmanship is newly learned and not yet well controlled, causing everyone inconvenience. Facing this situation, all Kaito could do was to sincerely apologize, but he made a mental note of this incident. Kaito hoped that when he confronted Danzo in the future, the old man would still respond to him with the same tone. Given that, everyone can disperse. The Anbu will take over the remaining tasks. How could Hiruzen Sarutobi not see that Kaito's apology lacked any sincerity? However, he was not in the mood to quibble about this right now. His gaze lingered on Danzo for a while, but in the end, he left without saying another word. With Hiruzen Sarutobi's departure, the other Konoha ninjas also left the scene one after another. Even Fugaku Uchiha, after casting a glance at Kaito and the others, turned and left the area. Only Kaito and Shisui, as well as a few Anbu members in charge of collecting the bodies, were left behind. Seeing this, Kaito naturally saw no need to stay any longer. After all, he had achieved what he wanted, so he directly led Shisui outside. After this event, neither Kaito nor Shisui felt like training anymore, and Shisui was full of doubts. When they had walked far enough away, Shisui suddenly asked in a low voice, "Were they Danzo's people?" If there's no mistake, they were his people," Kaito nodded. "But besides you, no one knows that I am aware of his existence, so I can act as I please." "I see, but after all, they were also Konoha ninjas." Shisui breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing Kaito's words, but he quickly shook his head. That's right, they were Konoha ninjas. Kaito could only nod to Shisui's comment, but then he suddenly counter-asked, so, have you considered what would happen to the Uchiha if they had succeeded? Chapter 37, Chapter 37. Time flies so fast. Standing at the front gate of his home, Kaito looked up at the clear sky, a smile unwittingly appearing at the corner of his mouth. Indeed, time had flown by. Since he unleashed his water bird wild dance to let those Foundation ninjas experience the blade of Mikela, a whole month had stealthily passed by. And within this month, many interesting things had happened. The first, of course, was as Kaito had anticipated. He had taken out so many Foundation ninjas, and his methods seemed overly brutal. So while Konoha openly praised his formidable strength, they likely whispered about his brutality in private. The words of the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, on that night in front of so many people could naturally not be forgotten by these ninjas. Similarly, there were rumors circulating in Konoha about Kaito's peculiar attitude towards the Nine Tails. Kaito didn't need to think much about it, and guessed that it wouldn't be long before the village would be awash with the rumors that had already circulated once, about the Sharingan being able to control the Nine Tails. However, Kaito, who was mentally prepared, was not at all bothered by this. After all, he had dispatched more than a dozen of their ninjas to the afterlife. And if the other side suffered such a significant loss without being able to retaliate, it was only natural for them to resort to idle talk. As for killing softly, there indeed seemed to be a touch of that. But the Uchiha were already infamous, so a little more wouldn't make a big difference. In fact, Kaito didn't want to stay in such a passive state all the time, but he didn't control the media machine, and he couldn't change it. However, these are not important. What's important are the changes in Shisui and the clan after that night. That night, Shisui indeed complained about Kaito's heavy hand, because in his view, these people were all Konoha ninjas. But Kaito asked him, if someone intends to harm you, or has even decided to kill you, would you wait to be killed? This question left Shisui somewhat silent, and in the end, he didn't say much more. Moreover, it was meaningless to dwell on the past, especially since the people were already dead. Especially the question posed by Kaito, it made him have to think seriously. Now, although Shisui still had a lot of problems in terms of experience, in terms of logical thinking, he had gained a good improvement, probably because Kaito had instilled him with dialectics for a month. After thinking about it for a week, he found Kaito in the middle of the night. I think I understand what you mean. If they succeed, the clan will become angry because of your death, angry at Konoha's recklessness, angry at Konoha's actions. And Konoha probably also wants the Uchiha to experience such a situation. Ultimately the clan and the village would explode with irreconcilable contradictions, right? Shisui's words made Kaito nod satisfactorily. Although it took a week to think clearly, this was a significant improvement compared to before. But I don't understand, why would Konoha do this? After getting Kaito's acknowledgement, Shisui obviously wasn't satisfied. Aren't the Uchiha part of Konoha? Kaito was really happy that he could ask this question, even though he once told him about the issues between the second and third Hokages. But there are some things Shisui will definitely verify, and now it is probably the result of his verification. Haven't I told you about this? The origin of everything is too far in the past, and I think you should have almost completed your investigation by now, right? Facing this question, Kaito seemed very calm, and his next words made Shisui's heart sink completely. Let's not consider the distant issues, just talk about the problems in Konoha. Have you noticed that since Hisashi Hyuga was sent away 5 years ago, the attitude of the Hyuga clan towards them has become much colder? Not only the Hyuga clan, I'm afraid many clans have started to become indifferent, because they are all afraid of whether they will be the next. In addition, you must have had contact with the members of the root in the Anbu, right? Those in the root who are like machines without self-will, many of them happen to be from bloodline clans. How do you think the root managed to get them? Shisui seemed to start understanding after hearing Kaito's words, although he didn't know how Kaito could have such an understanding of the root. But Shisui didn't intend to probe further. Everyone has their secrets, and digging to the root is never a good thing. So these clans are already dissatisfied with the third Hokage. He should have resigned due to the huge losses of the Third Great Ninja War. But after the death of the fourth Hokage, he took up power again, and now he has created such a situation. And the third Hokage, for their own interests and so-called village stability, naturally need to think of ways to solve these problems. The best way to solve these problems, I personally think, is to kill the chicken to scare the monkey, and the best object is naturally us. After all, the Uchihas are restless, and they don't like it. Kaito's words made Shisui fall completely silent. This answer was something he really didn't want to accept, but at the moment it was the most logical. In the following time, Kaito's words seemed to be confirmed. Even though Kaito didn't have an accident, the clan also noticed something wrong this time. Voices of dissatisfaction within the clan began to intensify. Even if the clever plan turned out to be clumsy, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Although Kaito looked like he was fine, doing whatever he should do every day, Shisui knew that if this continued, there would be a big problem. What Uchiha Fugaku is still doing is suppression and balance, and not only Shisui is dissatisfied with this approach, both the blood and the spirits are somewhat discontented now. If this continues and once one side completely takes over the discourse, perhaps Uchiha Fugaku will join in without hesitation. After all, as the clan head, standing on the side of the majority in the clan is the most normal thing. But how could I let such a thing happen? Kaito pondered in his heart, if such a thing happens, doesn't it mean that everything is back on the original track? Kaito was extremely resistant to this kind of thing. Although there was still a bit of time before the night of annihilation, no matter what, Kaito had to speed things up further. Some things are urgent and cannot wait, but some things must not be delayed. He wouldn't think about solving the problem during the night of annihilation, he would want to sort it out in advance. Only in this way could he handle more problems. Today is a good day, and I hope there will be a good outcome today. Kaito thought in his heart, and then he directly walked towards the residence of Uchiha S. Today he is going to demand a result, and no matter whether Uchiha S will give him a suitable result, he will make this guy give him a satisfactory answer. If persuasion by reason doesn't work, then persuade by reason. Although Kaito really didn't want to take action, mainly worried about affecting prosperity, he had already made psychological preparations and thought about how to do it. If it really comes to that step, then it's better to have short pain than long pain. Let the future make up for the loss now. With this in mind, Kaito had already arrived at the place where Uchiha S lived. However, when Kaito entered, he found that in addition to Uchiha S, there were other people also in here. Chapter 38, Chapter 38. When Kaito walked into the room and observed the interior, his first instinct was to scrutinize everything within it. What he didn't expect was that there were other people in this room besides Uchiha S. Actually, this wasn't that surprising. Uchiha S was merely an elder from the spirit faction, and there were others within their faction. This time they had gathered together, as everyone understood the purpose of Kaito's visit. It was time to lay their cards on the table. As soon as Kaito walked in, he looked around, trying to see if Uchiha S had arranged any forces that could be signaled by the shattering of a cup should their negotiations fall through. However, from what he could see at the moment, they didn't seem to have any such arrangements. In fact, even if they did, he wasn't worried, unless his opponent was Shisui, which might give him some trouble. After all, Shisui also possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan, and if a real fight broke out, Kaito could only guarantee that he wouldn't lose. Winning wasn't necessarily a given. "Welcome, Kaito-san." While Kaito was looking around, Uchiha S spoke up. This time, his face wore a gentle smile, a world apart from their last encounter. "Hello, Elder S, and all the other elders. Kaito withdrew his gaze, then greeted all the elders present with a nod and a faint smile. But soon after, he asked with a somewhat perplexed look on his face. I didn't expect Elder Naoki to be here, too. This is indeed a bit of a surprise. Uchiha Naoki was an elderly man who looked to be in his 50s, although according to Kaito's concept, this should still fall within the realm of middle-aged. However, all this was not important. What was significant was that, in Kaito's memory, Uchiha Naoki belonged to the Blood faction. His appearance here left Kaito somewhat baffled. Could it be that the Bloods were trying to approach him? Or could it be that the words he'd spoken with Uchiha-s had been conveyed to them by this man? Just as Kaito's heart was filled with doubts, Uchiha-s timely spoke, Kaito-san, there's no need to be surprised. To my embarrassment, although Naoki holds a different stance from us, he is my brother. Wasn't your brother supposed to be named Uchiha Shao? After hearing Uchiha-s's words, a thought inadvertently passed through Kaito's mind, but he quickly shook his head inwardly and began to think about other things. Honestly, he had not expected Uchiha-s to have another brother, and that the brother had joined the neighboring Blood faction. However, considering the Uchiha clan, or more accurately, the descendants of the Six Paths, it seemed that differing opinions and subsequent disputes were commonplace, so he didn't find it particularly strange. Now he seemed to understand a little better why, after Uchiha Shisui's death, and even with Uchiha Itachi still alive, the spirits had shifted their stance so swiftly. Perhaps, besides the hatred and despair these moderates felt for Shisui's death, Uchiha Naoki, as Uchiha-s's brother, might have also played a role. Regardless, Uchiha-s's decision to invite Uchiha Naoki over bore intriguing implications. So that's how it is, my apologies. Kaito feigned a sudden realization, then found a place to sit down. I presume you all know why I'm here this time. I have asked Shisui about who those guys probably are. Shisui's answer was that they were ninjas from the Root Division. I already have a rough understanding of what kind of place the Root Division is, and what those people probably do. So what's the impact of this attack on me? As the high-ranking members and key figures of our clan, I believe you are all more aware of this than I am, aren't you? Kaito's words made all the elders present nod involuntarily. They knew best how many times they had argued over this matter within the past month. It was this continuous division that led them to make a decision. That was to meet this young man, one of only two in the clan who possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan, and who didn't belong to any faction, possessing his own unique perspective and insights. We do understand your meaning, and indeed we agree with your thoughts after this incident, a moderate elder suddenly spoke up after Kaito finished. But we only agree with your thoughts, not with you becoming the clan leader. Even though Shisui said you are the only choice for the clan, and his only choice, you're too young and simply lack the experience and ability to manage a clan. Moreover, up to now, we only know your thoughts but not your specific methods. What makes you confident that we can trust you? These words from the elder made all the elders present nod in agreement, and Kaito couldn't help but glance at this individual. To be honest, Kaito was not angry because the questions raised were rather sharp and extremely realistic. If the shoe were on the other foot and Kaito were in such a situation, he would not easily submit either, even outright ignoring them was a possibility. The fact that these old figures can sit down and talk with him is already a considerable compromise, though largely due to the deterrent force of the Mangekyo Sharingan. I know you all fancy yourselves as experienced and capable, but tell me, would you have thought of these points if I hadn't brought them up? Kaito revealed a hint of a smile. He had no qualms at all right now, because as he saw it, this was merely a job interview. Even if you could think of these things, would you dare to act? Clearly, as it stands, you wouldn't dare. This is the difference in perspective, the vigor that belongs to the young, the vitality that you old folks who've crawled around for so long lack. Kaito's words were far from polite, one could even say they were extremely rude, but Kaito was too aware of his own strengths and weaknesses. He lacked experience and a convincing track record, but what he did have was a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan, as well as the support of another pair of Mangekyo Sharingan belonging to Shisui. Power is not absolute, but without power in the Uchiha clan, one is absolutely unfit. This is the reason Kaito dared to be assertive. As for my thoughts and my plan, I've spoken of them, perhaps too vaguely. Now I can be more explicit. In my view, whether it's your spirit faction or the blood, both are too extreme. The spirits are too compromising, a peace that is exchanged for compromise is doomed to perish eventually. Because you lack necessary firmness, others will only think you're easy to bully, and they will take from you without restraint. But the bloods are too inflexible, one might even say somewhat arrogant. I don't understand why they believe that with just us, we can shake up Konoha. Although their target might only be Hiruzen Sarutobi, who knows about Konoha? Who can help us? Excessive compromise leads to destruction, as does excessive hardlining. So, if I were clan leader, I would balance both factions' perspectives. The major conflict between the moderates and the hardliners is how to deal with Konoha. Now, I can give my answer. That is, in matters that do not involve the clan's interests, we can adopt a gentle approach to resolve issues. But once it comes to matters concerning the clan's interests, we must respond in a hardline manner to everyone. At this point, Kaito paused slightly, then continued in a meaningful tone. We're all family, and our goal is for the good of the clan. In the past, Uchiha Madara wanted to lead us away, but we refused. Now, if we wanted to leave, I'm afraid the clan members wouldn't want to either, and besides, the establishment of Konoha was the joint effort of Uchiha and Senju. Now that we've lost so much, we must strive doubly hard to change ourselves and take back everything we've lost. Chapter 39, Chapter 39. To take back what we have lost with our own hands, this sentence made all the Uchiha elders present inhale sharply. The main reason why the Uchiha clan has split into two factions is indeed for the clan, for taking back what they have lost. No matter how much their ideologies differ, leading to countless conflicts, this single point has never changed. Strictly speaking, Kaito's proposal to merge the ideas of both sides is not particularly ingenious, nor is it extraordinarily unique. After their many years of internal strife, there were no shortage of wise men among them, who had proposed similar ideas within the clan. But as the saying goes, coming up with an idea is one thing, being able to and daring to implement it is another. They have both endured so many years, and their conflicts have reached an unimaginable level. No one can truly speak these words, and no one can take the first step to compromise. Especially with the passage of time, they have all gradually aged, losing the motivation and determination to change the present situation. And the younger generation, due to their differing ideologies, perpetuates these conflicts, making it even less likely for them to take the first step to compromise. But Kaito, this young man, is truly different. He is a genius of the clan, but he doesn't belong to any faction. He has decent relationships with everyone, but he rarely mingles with the clan members. Such a character who stands purely neutral, his situation is somewhat similar to Uchiha Fugaku. But clearly, he's not Uchiha Fugaku, because he's genuinely, thoroughly not ensnared by it all. Looking at Kaito's spirited demeanor, his full-fledged determination, these elders, despite their discomfort, had to admit that Kaito was right. They had indeed aged. We've indeed grown old, and the things we need to consider have also multiplied. Many things have become irrelevant to right or wrong. Just because of certain positions and our own considerations, we dare not do what's right anymore. It took a while for Uchiha S to come back from Kaito's words. He gazed at Kaito and asked his final question. But merging the ideas of both sides isn't a simple matter, satisfying us all won't be easy. Moreover, I want to know, what would you do if we all refused? Again, a very realistic question. This was also the most challenging aspect for Kaito in uniting the clan's ideology and will. To put it bluntly, this is a very important test. Facing this inquiry, Kaito was somewhat troubled because he didn't want to tell the truth. But after thinking it over, Kaito felt that it would be best to tell the truth, because this was also a necessary opportunity to show his will. Having figured this out, Kaito took a deep breath. His gaze swept over everyone present, then he slowly began to speak. Merging the ideas of both sides is indeed not easy. Therefore, on critical points that neither side can accept, someone needs to make the final call. From beginning to end, I've never involved myself in any of your disputes with the Bloods. I am the one who can make the most objective decisions on certain matters. Once a great man said, there can't be freedom without discipline. It's a good thing that you all have your own perspectives and ideas. This is your freedom and it enables you to better utilize your abilities. But on key issues, there must be discipline, because the clan's ideology must be unified. This point is indisputable. Kaito's words made everyone present fall silent. The firm attitude expressed by Kaito was indeed a bit hard for them to accept because they were accustomed to Uchiha Fugaku's weakness. But they knew in their hearts that the Uchiha clan needed a strong leader to turn things around now, and Kaito's words earned their heartfelt approval. They didn't know who the great man was in Kaito's words, but the clan indeed needed discipline, indeed needed to unite. As for if you don't agree. As they were pondering, Kaito spoke again. Only this time, his voice had become a bit more somber. Then there's only one thing I can do. On the one hand, I will work with Shisui to vigorously contact lower-level Uchiha members, whether they are ninja or civilians. I've told Shisui what the real mechanism of power is. It's not something you were born with, but comes from the obedience of more clan ninjas. Shisui and I have spent plenty of time communicating and connecting with them during this period. This is just a broad direction, but an even broader direction is. At this moment, Kaito's gaze became sharper. His inner chakra began to rotate rapidly. His tone also became somewhat icy in this moment. If negotiations fail, then I will eliminate all of you elders. You are all too important and too dangerous. Your thoughts can influence those who follow you. You can make them peaceful or make them take up arms. And once you're dead, the others are just scattered sand. Under the leadership of 2 pairs of Mangekyo, they would naturally be willing to follow us. Do not doubt my determination, nor question my ability. Even if I can't do it alone, I can have Shisui join me. Rather than letting the clan fall into ruin or even perish in your hands, I'd rather eliminate you in advance, making you the foundation stone for the clan to regain its glory. Kaito's words were powerful and resolute. He didn't really want to say these things, but he knew that since he was laying his cards on the table, he might as well be clear. Making them aware of his determination is a good thing, and if Kaito really has to take action, he has some confidence that he won't easily lose control. Though Kaito is also well aware that this group might agree to his face but work against him behind his back. But the suppression of the Mangekyo on the Sharingan is no joke, as can be seen from how Uchiha Itachi and Tobi single-handedly infiltrated the Uchiha clan. Kaito only hopes that these guys retain some idea of preserving the spark, so he doesn't have to do anything unpleasant. Upon hearing Kaito's words, the faces of the elders became particularly unsightly. They had not ruled out such a situation, but Kaito's brazenness filled their hearts with unease. Even though Kaito acknowledged their importance, saying to your face that he wants to eliminate you would make anyone uncomfortable. And in their view, the fact that Kaito could say this directly must mean that he's not worried about them making any moves, and that he can certainly follow through on his threats. For a while, everyone fell silent. After a good long while, Uchiha S was the first to break the silence, albeit somewhat weakly. We understand your intentions. It seems that for the sake of our lives, we have no choice but to continue compromising. Uchiha S's words had a touch of sarcasm, but were primarily filled with bitterness and helplessness. In fact, we had a contingency plan before you came. We have 2 conditions that you must agree to. Let's hear them. Upon hearing Uchiha's words, Kaito knew that this matter was basically settled, but he was interested in hearing what Uchiha had to say. First, after you become the clan leader, Shisui must be the deputy leader. He needs to supervise all your actions. Because if you do something out of line, only Shisui can stop you. Kaito was momentarily taken aback by this request, but quickly nodded his agreement. He hadn't expected the promise he had initially made to actually be brought up as a condition. He had no reason to refuse. I can accept that, Kaito nodded. Please continue. As for the second one, I will speak for it. At this moment, Uchiha Naoki spoke up. Please, Mr. Kaito, come over to our place tonight. We need to verify some things. I can accept that, Kaito nodded, then revealed a hint of a smile. However, I suspect you're not just aiming to verify a few things, are you? Chapter 40, Chapter 40. That night, Kaito followed Uchiha and the others towards the bamboo forest at the back of the Uchiha clan's territory. This bamboo forest was quite large and not far from the clan leader's mansion. Most importantly, almost all of the blood elders lived in its vicinity. Since Kaito had agreed to their request, it was natural for him to come, even though he was slightly surprised that Uchiha was accompanying him. However, it wasn't a big deal. Kaito knew that they had asked him to come over tonight likely to test his strength. The Uchiha clan's reverence for power was a well-known fact, and the hardliners sought to seize control of Konoha through force. To make them stand down, one would need to completely overpower them. I just wonder if there's any sort of a banquet at Hungmen in store for me here, if there really is. Kaito murmured to himself, even though he had been cautious, even to the point of not drinking a single sip of water since the morning. But as it turned out, his caution had indeed been excessive. However, being constantly vigilant was an essential quality a ninja must possess. Kaito had no intention of letting down his guard, especially when matters were yet to be completely settled, and given that he was currently in a precarious situation. Before long, they arrived at a house on the outskirts of the bamboo forest, where Uchiha Naoki had been waiting for a while. Welcome, Naoki took a step forward and nodded at Kaito. His gaze then shifted to Mune. Brother, glad you could join us. Enough chatter, let's go in. Mune shook his head and spoke directly, are they waiting for us inside? No, they're in the back. Naoki's gaze once again met Kaito's, everyone's in the bamboo forest. Let's go. Neither Kaito nor the Uchiha elders found Naoki's words strange. They all knew what the theme of the evening was, and choosing a more open and concealed location was obviously the best choice. Kaito nodded slightly, he naturally had no objections. Before long, they followed in Naoki's footsteps towards the bamboo forest. The bamboo forest was lush and dense, its silver-gilded gloom under the moonlight giving it a cold and desolate air. There was no firelight within the bamboo forest, lending it an eerie aspect. Before long, they reached the center of the bamboo forest. It was here that Kaito could clearly see quite a few people standing. However, these people seemed to maintain the characteristics of a ninja. They stood apart, all in the shadows, making it impossible for Kaito to see their faces. But as soon as Kaito arrived, they all activated their Sharingan almost immediately. The crimson glow flickered incessantly in the bamboo forest. The already eerie atmosphere seemed to reach its peak at that moment. Yet, Kaito didn't show much of a reaction. He didn't believe that Naoki hadn't told them about what he had said earlier. These people were obviously trying to intimidate him. After all, anyone would be irked if they felt threatened, regardless of their decisions. Therefore, it was normal for them to do something seemingly outrageous. As long as these actions didn't pose a real threat, Kaito wouldn't be bothered. So you're Uchiha Kaito? At that moment, an old but energetic voice rang out, the prodigy of the clan, with a newly awakened Mangeki. I wouldn't dare to claim being a clan prodigy, Kaito replied with a light laugh, as for whether my Mangeki is newly awakened or not, it's not for you to judge. He nodded towards Moon and then walked forward alone. As he moved, he continued speaking slowly. I must say, I'm a bit disappointed because your performance is quite different from what I had imagined. But it doesn't matter, I know why you've asked me to come here for the stability and future of the clan. So here I am. Now, it's your turn to express your stance. It seems others have misunderstood you. I've always heard that you're the least like an Uchiha among all Uchiha members, but now it seems you truly are an Uchiha. This voice echoed again, and this time, there seemed to be a hint of amusement in it. You're still that proud Uchiha, only you've hidden your pride. I like such pride. What a nutcase! Kaito murmured to himself. Pride or no pride, when he initially arrived, he was indeed pretty pleased to be an Uchiha. After all, apart from the thrill of racing in various senses, who doesn't dream of piloting a Gundam? However, the plight of the Uchiha clan had given him quite a headache. He had wanted to change the Uchiha for quite some time, but unfortunately, he didn't have the decisive power in the past due to his lack of influence. This was the reason for his reluctance to stay and his decision to run away. But now that he had the decisive power, he naturally wouldn't be polite to these people. Yet his impoliteness was interpreted as a kind of pride, which left him rather bemused. Apart from sighing that these folks were all shameless, he had nothing more to say. Taking a deep breath, Kaito slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they had transformed into the blood-red three-tomo Sharingan state. You talk too much. I've said before, I know what the purpose of calling me here today is. I also just want to see exactly how strong the elites here are. After all, you guys are the ones fantasizing about overthrowing Hiruzen Sarutobi's rule through force. You're the ones planning to make enemies of the entire Konoha. As he said this, Kaito suddenly revealed a faint smile, a smile seemingly filled with mockery. I'm curious to see what kind of power you guys have to dare to do such a thing. After all, Konoha is waiting for you guys to seize the initiative so they can retaliate. If you can't even get past me, then I would advise you to stop dreaming because this will only lead the clan to self-destruction. Upon saying this, Kaito drew his ninja blade, swinging it at the bamboo around him. In an instant, a bamboo stalk was chopped down by him, falling to the ground. After using his ninja blade to measure its size, he cut it accordingly. Finally, he thrust his ninja blade into the ground, casually picking up the bamboo pole he'd just fashioned to match the length of his blade, letting out a soft chuckle. Come on, I'm ready. If you want to see my Mangekyo Sharingan, at least give me a reason to feel pressured to use it. In the end, don't let me down. I hope you can entertain me. Chapter 41, Chapter 41. Kaito's words made all the Uchihas present furrow their brows, for such words couldn't be described as merely arrogant. Fortunately, Kaito himself was an Uchiha. The words that came out of his mouth were acceptable to some extent. However, the premise was that Kaito truly needed to display a strength that would convince them. Otherwise, this kind of arrogance would disgust anyone. Gradually, about 10 Uchiha ninja emerged from the shadows of the bamboo grove, one of them leading the way. He stared at Kaito, then spoke in a flat voice, true to the Uchiha prodigy, your pride truly emanates from your bones. I just wonder if you can live up to it. Hearing this man's words, Kaito couldn't help but roll his eyes. It was as if he was saying, you really are a perfect fit for the crazy Uchiha clan. This made Kaito somewhat uncomfortable. However, Kaito wasn't that easy to talk to either. He looked at the man in front of him and suddenly shook his head, just you. What do you mean? The man stepped out from the shadows, a robust young man. However, as soon as his words fell, Kaito had already appeared in front of him. Without giving him any chance to react, Kaito's eyes unleashed an eerie power. At the same time, the bamboo pole in his hand was ruthlessly thrust forward. Kaito overlaid the azure chakra on the bamboo pole, and it silently, lightly landed on the brawny ninja. The robust man was quick to react, but as he was about to move, Kaito's scarlet eyes had already quietly met his gaze. In an instant, the muscular ninja felt a pause in his brain, and the next second it felt as if his mind had gone blank. Just then, Kaito's bamboo pole had struck him, and with a booming sound, the robust Uchiha ninja was knocked directly to the ground. All the ninjas present were stunned once again. Kaito's decisiveness was somewhat beyond expectation. This guy really seized the opportunity decisively, not wasting time on pointless chatter. Watching the burly ninja writhing in pain on the ground, unable to get up for a while, their hearts couldn't help but quicken, but Kaito's words made their blood pressure start to rise. My meaning is very clear. One person is not enough. Your goal is to witness my Mangekyo, isn't it? But with just one person, I don't even see the need to activate it. Saying this, Kaito's gaze swept over all those present, and the terrifying aura on him erupted in an instant. The oppressive atmosphere continued to spread among the crowd, making them feel as if their hearts were skipping a beat. If it's only to this extent, you can't even please me. After finishing his words, Kaito indifferently watched everyone. Under the cover of moonlight, Kaito appeared so terrifying. In the rustle of the bamboo forest stirred by the cool breeze, it seemed to be mocking everyone present. Attack! We can't let this bastard look down on us. Finally, someone unknown suddenly yelled, and all the young, blood Uchiha present erupted. They roared with anger, and then more than a dozen of them, full of fury, charged towards Kaito. The two sides were not even on the same scale in terms of numbers. Even though the tide of a ninja fight can often be turned by sheer quantity, there always seem to be exceptions. Such as now. Ah! Upon the first direct confrontation, a scream had already erupted from one of the ninjas. Faced with the onslaught of these ninjas, Kaito could feel a degree of trouble, but that was all it was, trouble. His power was growing rapidly. Although his main strength still lay in the quantity and quality of his chakra, his physical growth could not compare. However, his speed and insight became more and more exaggerated. Moreover, during this month, Kaito had not exercised himself. Even though Shisui had not yet decided to leave the Anbu, Kaito's training was more focused on research, especially on the development of the Susanoo. In general, after obtaining the Mangekyo Sharingan, Kaito's Taijutsu also saw a great improvement. Even if he didn't use the Mangekyo Sharingan, let alone the power of reverse path, his strength was not something these guys could easily compare with. Under the moonlight, Kaito was like a dancing butterfly among the crowd, his movements effortless. Every Uchiha ninja who had even a slight contact with him was sent sprawling. Even though some of the ninjas also activated their Sharingan, under the vast disparity in insight, these Uchiha ninjas had no way to withstand his attacks. In Kaito's hands, the battle seemed like an art, every move was incredibly concise and natural. Casually tossing the bamboo pole in his hand high into the air, Kaito nimbly sidestepped an incoming attack, swiftly landing a punch on the most vulnerable area of the Uchiha ninja before him. Instantly, this Uchiha was sent flying, and under the clever application of force, several of his comrades behind him were all blocked. His crimson Sharingan slightly rotated as he subtly shifted to the side, narrowly dodging a wooden kunai aimed at his back. These guys were clearly prepared. From their choice of weapon materials, they seemed to have no intention of setting up some kind of ambush. However, even so, Kaito had no intention of holding back. These guys wanted to see his strength, so naturally, Kaito would give them a good show. His right hand shot up to grab a wooden kunai aimed at his face by an Uchiha ninja, seizing the arm that was wielding it. The Uchiha ninja then felt his arm being pulled uncontrollably in another direction. Thud! There was a muffled sound as another Uchiha ninja was brutally hit in the chest by the wooden kunai, causing him to fly backwards. Even if it was a wooden kunai, being hit hard was an incredibly painful experience. Kaito didn't even glance at the guy he had sent flying. With a strong twist of his wrist, the Uchiha ninja's arm he had grabbed was instantly dislocated. Then Kaito crouched once more, cleverly dodging an incoming attack. Like a cheetah, he charged, causing another Uchiha ninja, who had seen Kaito rushing towards him, to be sent flying without making any move to resist. As his Sharingan lightly rotated, a ninja about to strike Kaito was suddenly frozen in place. In the next moment, he was kicked away by Kaito, while the bamboo pole Kaito had thrown high in the air descended just in time for him to catch it. You truly disappoint me. Kaito's inner chakra was still surging as his gaze once again swept over everyone, followed by a light chuckle. If this is the extent of your abilities, then I think it's time to end this. You couldn't even force out my Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Kaito, enough. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly stepped forward. The man's face was somewhat grim, and the intensity of the chakra emanating from him was very high. Most importantly, there seemed to be a faint murderous intent coming from him. Clearly, this man had participated in the Third Great Ninja War, and he was one of the elite who had survived. Kaito frowned when he saw the man, but quickly maintained his smile and asked, "Oh, can't I even speak the truth? You are very strong, so strong it is frightening." "That is indeed the truth," the middle-aged man said in a low voice. "But they are also your clansmen, and don't think we have no one else." Chapter 42, Chapter 42. Don't think we have no one left. The middle-aged man spoke with a loud and firm voice, but to Kaito, it sounded like the whining of a loser. Kaito had only speculated before, about how much the Mangekyo suppressed ordinary Sharingan. But now, he was fully certain that such suppression was unimaginable. Because what you have, others have as well, and they're stronger. What you don't have, others have, with bizarre abilities and unimaginable power. Moreover, even without activating, it can enhance the state and intensity of the three Tomo Sharingan. It can be said that the Mangekyo Sharingan and the ordinary Sharingan are really products of two different dimensions. No wonder Uchiha Itachi and Tobi managed to wipe out the vast Uchiha clan so easily, although they also had the secret assistance of the Root Division. But Kaito would never let such a thing happen. Everything he was doing now was to completely eradicate such a possibility. Lifting his head slightly, Kaito stared at the man before him, and shook his head slightly. "Well said, but can you do it?" Saying this, Kaito casually stabbed the bamboo pole in his hand into the ground, and at this moment, the chakra within his body surged again. Strength is not just empty talk. No matter how nice the words sound, they are worthless, especially considering that you can't even force out my Mangekyo. To be honest, with this level of power, you're dreaming of a coup, and haven't even thought about finding more allies? Not to mention taking care of your own image, defining clear goals, and integrating the clan's morale. With divided hearts, what are you planning to use for rebellion? Without a goal, do you want to confront the entire Konoha? You believe yourselves to be lions, but in my eyes, you're nothing but sheep. I suspect the Konoha feels the same, otherwise they wouldn't take action against me. After all the arguing over these past few days, you should have noticed, this is the Konoha's attempt to force you into action. Because once you take action, then the Konoha has an excuse to deal with all of us. With these words, Kaito took a deep breath, and the three Tomo in his eyes started spinning faster. With this spinning, a suppressed and destructive power began to spread quietly through the bamboo forest. So I've always said, it's not wrong for you to be tough, but when toughness reaches a certain level, it becomes foolishness. This is just like the blind compromise of Uchiha's and the others will only lead to destruction, just as the too strong will break, and when things reach an extreme, they must turn back. You are inevitably leading the entire clan to extinction. Also, didn't you want to see my Mangekyo? Then watch carefully, feel it well. As his words fell, the three Tomo in Kaito's eyes had merged into one. The strange pattern, coupled with the terrifying power, made the already eerie bamboo forest even more chilling. In an instant, a deep blue chakra began to emerge on Kaito's body, this chakra wildly covering Kaito, slowly forming the shape of ribs. Seeing this scene, all the people present involuntarily swallowed, especially the elders, whose bodies were trembling slightly. Susanoo. In fact, when they saw the strange pattern of the Sharingan in Kaito's eyes, these Blood's elders had already become excited. This was the first time they had witnessed the Mangekyo of the younger generation. Although Shisui also has a Mangekyo, Shisui stands behind Uchiha-s, his position is completely different from theirs. Moreover, Shisui is part of the Anbu, spending long periods away from the clan, and rarely even participating in clan meetings, so he has hardly seen Shisui's Mangekyo. Speaking of which, such a situation is indeed frustratingly unbearable, clearly being family, yet creating such strangeness and resistance between each other. Perhaps this is what Kaito meant when he said the clan is dreaming of a coup while their hearts are not united. Kaito, though not in league with them, is in many ways far worse than Shisui. However, upon careful consideration, Kaito indeed has the basis for such an attitude, because Kaito has not only activated the Mangekyo Sharingan but is also capable of using Susanoo. Most of them have experienced the period of Uchiha Madara's departure, as well as the period of chaotic warfare. Even if they have not activated the Mangekyo, they understand that each pair of Mangekyo has different techniques, and each pair of Mangekyo hides the most powerful force, the Susanoo. Each pair of Mangekyo can indeed activate its own Susanoo, but not every person with a Mangekyo can activate this ability. This is because using this technique requires not only a high degree of proficiency with the Mangekyo, but also because using this technique can damage one's Mangekyo. And now, Kaito can smoothly and casually use this technique, which already shows how strong Kaito's control over his own Mangekyo is. Looking at the middle-aged man, who even before the Susanoo, even in its most primitive state, seemed somewhat uncomfortable and chilled. The old man who had spoken for the Bloods earlier sighed helplessly, and he slowly walked forward and finally stood in front of the middle-aged man. "That's enough, Kaito-san, it's enough." Elder. Seeing the actions of the elder, the middle-aged man couldn't help but feel some shame. He lowered his head, seemingly unable to face Kaito's gaze. Others might not be able to feel it, but as the one directly facing the brunt of Kaito's pressure, he knew all too well the terror of the utter despair that came from being targeted by the Mangekyo. He himself didn't know how much courage he mustered to face all of this. If he could, he really didn't want to go through it again. "It's fine, Tomoya, if we're no match, we're no match. And Kaito-san is not trying to humiliate us." The elder gently shook his head, signaling the middle-aged man to stop talking. Then, he seriously turned his gaze towards Kaito. "Kaito-san has this power, he stands at a height we cannot reach. He looks down upon us all, he has the right to do whatever he wants. Let everyone leave. I think you all should understand just how vast the gap is now." Upon saying this, the elder, disregarding Uchiha Tomoya behind him, continued to walk forward. When he reached Kaito, he stared into his eyes. This action made Kaito frown involuntarily. In the old man's eyes, Kaito saw obsession, as well as endless longing. However, the old man seemed to realize that his behavior was somewhat excessive, and he quickly composed himself. Only after making his demeanor seem quite normal did he faintly speak up, "Kaito-san, I think we can have a good chat now." "Oh." Kaito raised an eyebrow, then he couldn't help but show a hint of a smile. "Don't need to look any longer at my state under the Mangekyo Sharingan. No need, this is enough." The old man shook his head, then seriously spoke. "You don't have to maintain this state, Kaito-san, it's not good for your eyes." Chapter 43, Chapter 43. Maintaining Susanoo for a long time indeed isn't good for Kaito's eyes, but the truth is, it isn't as bad as this old man imagines. Kaito's Susanoo was activated with the help of Reverse Path, who significantly lowered the difficulty for Kaito to unlock Susanoo. Furthermore, after a month of training and learning, Kaito found that this difficulty reduction was not just for the initial activation. Even the self-exhaustion from Susanoo seems to have been included in this difficulty reduction. The actual wear on Kaito's eyes wasn't as severe as he imagined. However, what Susanoo drains isn't just physical strength, it's also massively consuming chakra. Although the consumed chakra seems to be mostly from the Susanoo buried deep within Kaito's eyes, a Susanoo that seems to exist in a different space and belongs to Kaito's own guardian deity. But channeling such power, and bringing it down through the Mangekyo Sharingan is a very difficult task and consumes a lot of chakra. Luckily, after activating the Mangekyo, Kaito's chakra experienced a massive increase, and what he had activated was only the initial stage of Susanoo. This amount of consumption was nothing for him. This was the conclusion drawn from a month of almost experimental training, otherwise, Kaito wouldn't dare to use it recklessly. Silently closing the Susanoo, and also closing his Mangekyo Sharingan, Kaito just quietly looked at the old man before him. In Kaito's memory, this old man was called Uchiha Kaito, a very respected elder in the clan. However, like Uchiha, Kaito basically has no connection with Kaito, and in Kaito's view, their political demands are very irritating. After all, once they gained enough influence to force Uchiha Fugaku, the deeply hidden moderate, into opposition, Konoha did not hesitate to take action against the Uchiha. It would be truly strange if Kaito had a positive opinion of such people. Now this guy has kept the elder here, indicating that he wants to have a good talk. Kaito is quite curious about what they intend to discuss. But what pleases Kaito is that perhaps what they are about to discuss now might be the answer Kaito is willing to accept. It wasn't until Uchiha Tomoya and the others who were beaten by Kaito one by one left the bamboo forest with their heads down, that Uchiha Kaito began to speak. All right, they've all left. I hope you aren't upset about what happened tonight, Kaito-san. With this, Uchiha Kaito sighed silently, then continued speaking. I've heard from Elder Naoki about your meeting this morning. Fundamentally, I agree with your viewpoint, but there's one thing I cannot do. That is to demand, in the firmest manner, that the children who follow me listen to me, to give up their grudges, to let go of their hatred, as well as to abandon our past beliefs. Since an unknown number of years ago, the dispute over beliefs between the two sides has arisen, and up to today, many times, many things have forced us into a state of helplessness. So, you need me to step in and tell them. Upon hearing Uchiha Kaito's words, Kaito couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. While there wasn't anything wrong with what this guy was saying, Kaito wasn't going to completely trust his words. After he finished speaking, he paused for a moment of thought, then suddenly burst into laughter. At the same time, you also want to see my Mangekyo Sharingan, don't you? Your eyes just now told me everything. Indeed, I yearn to see the Mangekyo Sharingan again. After all, it's been a very long time since I've seen such eyes. Uchiha Kaito didn't have any intention of rebutting. He simply nodded and then revealed a slight smile. Moreover, fighting with them also serves as a confirmation of your authority. To be the clan leader, you naturally need everyone's approval. On Uchiha's side, having the approval of Shisui was enough to get everyone else's approval. But the situation here is different. Even if Shisui is strong, we don't have much interaction with him. The children who follow me are ignorant, having only heard of the Mangekyo Sharingan but not understanding its power. They naturally won't acknowledge this. Therefore, your intervention could make up for this. Letting these ignorant children know about the ultimate power of the Uchiha is also a good thing. The ultimate power of the Uchiha? Upon hearing this, Kaito was taken aback. The Mangekyo Sharingan may indeed be a strong power of the Uchiha clan, but it's hardly ever considered the ultimate power, right? After all, beyond the Mangekyo Sharingan, there's the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which is almost infinitely powerful and never loses its sight. Could it be that this old man doesn't even know about the existence of these eyes? After a moment's thought, Kaito didn't bother worrying about the matter any further. After all, he had received an answer that he was rather keen to hear. Clan leader, the word, coming from Uchiha Tekaki's mouth, along with Kaito's threats this morning and his current performance, can be entirely seen as this old man's recognition, or perhaps it could be a compromise. Regardless of which it is, Kaito had received the answer he wanted. So, what are your requests? Kaito took a deep breath, raising his head to seriously look at Uchiha Tekaki. Though he knew he had received approval, he didn't believe that Uchiha Tekaki would so easily completely obey. Uchiha even negotiated terms with him, albeit it was Shisui's involvement that gave him the courage to do so. However, Uchiha Tekaki is also an elder, and he surely has his own ideas. Even if Kaito doesn't necessarily agree with him, he can still hear him out. Hearing his demands, knowing his thoughts, it would also facilitate Kaito in making some judgments. I know, Uchiha's proposed 2 demands to you, making Shisui the vice-clan leader, and gaining our recognition. I heard you agreed to the first request, and the second request you have already fulfilled, so I also have 2 demands. Don't worry, we won't make things difficult for you. Uchiha Tekaki earnestly looked at Kaito, before he began to seriously speak. Firstly, you must ensure the safety of the clan, as is your duty as clan leader. Secondly, you must fulfill all your promises. I want to see you make the Uchiha great again. My demands are only these 2, can you promise me? Kaito was taken aback upon hearing his words. He had been wondering what sort of demands this old man would make, even thinking they might be requests that would put him in a difficult position. However, he didn't expect that his demands would be so simple, and they could even be said to be what Kaito intended to do in the future. At this moment, he seemed to realize that although the people of the Uchiha were somewhat problematic in their thinking, their hearts were not as terrible as he had imagined. Despite their differing ideologies, they were still trying to save the clan in their own ways. Although the outcome was terrible, they were genuinely trying to do something, which made Kaito look at them in a more positive light. Taking a deep breath, Kaito nodded seriously, I accept your demands, and I will do my best to fulfill them. Moreover, your demands are also my ultimate goals. Is that so? Upon hearing this, a radiant smile appeared on Uchiha Tekaki's face. He turned to look at Uchiha and others. Uchiha, leading his line of elders, and Uchiha Naoki, along with their blood's elders, walked over. Soon, they all stood together, their expressions becoming extremely serious. The next moment, they collectively bowed slightly. Clan leader, we entrust the future of the Uchiha to you. Chapter 44, Chapter 44. So, you've been approved by both sides. I suppose so. Although I have to say, people on both sides are somewhat problematic in their thinking. But they're all doing it for the clan, and after witnessing my mangekyou, they've quieted down. On a bright afternoon, Kaito and Shisui sat at the edge of a training field, quietly chatting. However, Shisui's face looked a bit awkward at the moment because Kaito's words also included a critique of him. Yet, he had nothing to refute Kaito's words. After all, according to the logic Kaito had laid out, they indeed belonged to the group of people with flawed thinking. Regardless of whether they were problematic or not, all of that was in the past now, because Shisui had received a piece of news that excited him immensely. Today was his day off, and he had originally planned to go home and ask Kaito about the situation. But when he got home, he found that Kaito wasn't there. After some inquiries, he found Kaito at the training field. However, before he had a chance to ask his question, Kaito had pulled him into a training session. Although Shisui was anxious to get answers, seeing Kaito so relaxed, still in the mood to train and practice with his newly acquired ninja blade, he knew that the situation probably wasn't too bad. So, he decided to calm down and accompany Kaito, until they just finished a little while ago. It was only after they finished that he had the chance to ask Kaito about what had been happening recently. He also received an incredibly pleasing answer. Namely, Both Uchiha So, who he regarded as his grandfather, and the blood Uchiha Tekaki had agreed to Kaito's terms. The requests they made also moved Shisui deeply. He genuinely hadn't expected that the requests of these two elders would be so straightforward. Just as Kaito had said, although their individual philosophies had led to chaos within the clan, they truly wished for the clan to improve. Well then, congratulations, Kaito. Deciding not to continue on this topic, Shisui feared that his inner emotions would be upset by Kaito's words. Smiling, he looked at Kaito and then asked. So, should I, like the elders, now address you as clan leader? It's still early for that. At least until many things are sorted out, there won't be any immediate action. Or are you already impatient to become the deputy leader? Kaito turned his head and teased Shisui without hesitation, which made Shisui scratch his head. In fact, there were indeed a lot of things the elders needed to do, such as clarifying the bottom line regarding the treatment of Konoha that both sides could accept. This kind of matter is very time-consuming and labor-intensive. They've been discussing these issues with Kaito for over half a month. But fortunately, despite these issues being extremely difficult to handle, particularly those they simply could not agree on, they had a prior agreement. Therefore, when they couldn't continue the discussion, they would directly leave the decision to Kaito. In fact, Kaito also felt a headache when facing these troublesome issues. But the good thing is, he always knew what to do and how to do it. Therefore, unlike Uchiha Fugaku, he made decisions on these matters without any hesitation. As for the remaining minor details, Kaito couldn't be bothered to squabble with them. With the overall direction under his control, other things that they strive for their own benefits, Kaito would just turn a blind eye. Micromanaging everything would eventually wear him out. He hadn't forgotten how a certain wise yet demonic prime minister had exhausted himself this way. As long as it was within a reasonable range, Kaito couldn't possibly manage everything. Everyone had to share in the cake to get everyone on board, and he understood this point well. In addition to this, Kaito also had to liaise with the younger generation of the clan and those who he referred to as the majority of the Uchiha. Since Kaito had been so candid about the mechanism of power transfer, and having studied Mao's concept, he understood too well what the power of the people meant. Therefore, Kaito was willing to invest time in this area. Besides, for the clan to prosper, he could not focus solely on the field of ninja. He had to pay attention to all aspects and all sides, all of which required his transformation in order for the prosperity of the clan to improve. Only then could he gain more points to exchange for superior abilities. Current binding, Uchiha clan. Current status, relative balance. You have resolved the internal problems of the clan, but external villains are still around. Prosperity, 11,000, the basic prosperity of a normal clan is 10,000. Suggestion, consolidate all clan forces to withstand the impact of external enemies. After Kaito integrated the two major factions, he also received some points, which were so few that they even made Kaito feel depressed. Even though these points were enough for Kaito to draw a lottery once, after all, it had reached 1,000, but this time Kaito didn't get anything good. Ninjutsu Aegis Shield. After each casting of a jutsu, a chakra-based shield will be formed that can absorb a certain amount of damage. In the end, Kaito chose a defensive ability. To be honest, he would have preferred to see the granite shield from last time, but unfortunately, he did not get it. He really didn't understand why, even after integrating the two factions, the system couldn't give him a little more points. However, after pondering it, he suddenly realized something: his integration was not coming from the clan head. This means that there is still a vast difference between the ideology of the clan head and theirs, and the system's judgment is still from a higher level of the Uchiha clan. This means that unless Kaito can become the clan head, he probably won't get many points. But it will happen soon. After all, such things can't be delayed. Several months have passed since he got the system, and the night of the clan extermination in Kaito's memory seems to be getting closer. But the good news is, Kaito has essentially prepared himself. Tragedy will absolutely not be born under his watch. And when he has finished doing the things he needs to do at present, then he will formally challenge Uchiha Fugaku. No matter what, he has to become the clan head of the Uchiha clan. By the way, Shisui. Suddenly, Kaito seemed to think of something, so he asked, "How is that kid Itaka doing now?" Itaka. Shisui blinked, as if he fell into thought, and then slowly said, "He has been quite busy with missions lately, but he should be back soon." "Is that so?" Kaito didn't care about what Uchiha Itaka's mission was. After all, he couldn't casually inquire about Anbu's missions. However, Kaito was also considering something. Although he was really displeased with Uchiha Itaka, this snitch. Considering that this guy hadn't done anything outrageous yet, and the clan indeed needed strength to deal with trouble. So Kaito planned to give it a try. He wanted to let Shisui see if he could convince Uchiha Itaka. If it's possible, then everything would naturally be fine. If it's not, "What's wrong? Why do you look so gloomy?" Just as Kaito was thinking, Shisui suddenly asked curiously, "Your relationship with Itaka has never been great since you were kids. It's weird that he seems to dislike you. Perhaps my thoughts and his ideas conflict." Kaito snapped out of it, and couldn't help but smile slightly. "By the way, the clan needs strength. Do you think you could persuade him to help us?" "Persuade him?" Shisui was taken aback, and then he nodded seriously, "No problem, I can handle this. But how much information about the clan should I disclose to him?" "Try not to disclose it as much as possible." Kaito thought about it seriously, and finally, he slowly said, "Just tell him that the clan has a different idea and thought that can change the clan. Unless he really agrees, otherwise." "You don't trust him?" "Forget it, leave this to me, I will handle it well." "Well, I'll count on you then." Chapter 45, Chapter 45. Having Shisui try to persuade Itaka was indeed a decision Kaito made after a long period of contemplation. Although Kaito really dislikes this self-righteous and extremely arrogant guy, everything he does is what he believes to be the best choice for Konoha and the clan. Even with Suzuki, he never truly considered his feelings and ideas according to his own understanding, he just did what he thought was right. Such a character and his actions, if they can't be described as self-righteous and arrogant, Kaito doesn't know what else can be used to describe them. Although in the original story, Uchiha Itaka finally awakens and expresses his repentance to Suzuki. But the Uchiha clan has been wiped out completely. Whether his repentance is truly useful or not, Kaito doesn't know. In any case, when placed in the context of the Uchiha group, he feels it's utterly useless, so Kaito's perception of Uchiha Itaka has always been poor. Of course, it might also be because he was from a country imbued with a 1,000-year tradition of filial piety before his transmigration. As for the grudges between Konoha and the Uchiha, in Kaito's view, they are not insolvable problems. Although the Uchiha clan indeed has significant problems in expressing their political demands, their core philosophy fundamentally is just the pursuit of fairness. As one of the two founding elder clans of Konoha, the Uchiha clan can be said to have only experienced fairness and impartial treatment during the early days of its establishment under Hashirama Senju's reign. But since Uchiha Madara left and Hashirama Senju passed away, their clan has been gradually drifting away from Konoha. They never had the possibility of becoming the Hokage. Under the influence of Tobirama Senju, they were feared, dreaded, and ultimately ostracized by the residents of Konoha. All these have caused the greatest harm to the Uchiha clan who chose to stay. In such an atmosphere, the Uchihas gave birth to two extreme ideas, one extreme compromise and one extreme toughness. But regardless of which it is, the purpose is to retrieve what is rightfully theirs. But they probably never dreamed that someone like Uchiha Itaka would emerge. Kaito didn't actually want to bother with Uchiha Itaka. After all, considering his own interests as a child, he tried to get close to him, but Uchiha Itaka never paid him any attention. Adding the fact that as a transmigrator, knowing Itake's future actions, Kaito gradually just focused on building a good relationship with Shisui and left it at that. Now, Kaito can basically confirm that he can become the clan head, so he needs enough people to help him. Although Uchiha Itake's character and thinking ability are very poor, it is undeniable that he is a guy with the potential of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Moreover, even though Kaito is upset with Uchiha Itachi for things that have not yet happened in the future, he must admit that those things haven't occurred yet. Since they haven't happened, coupled with all that Kaito has done to rectify these issues, then his best course of action is to put aside some personal feelings, consider things from the clan's perspective, and see if he can win over this kid, Uchiha Itachi. If we can win him over, great. If not, well, it is what it is. Itachi may act for Sasuke's sake, but Konoha also holds an extraordinary position in his heart. It's entirely normal for someone like him to not see eye to eye with us. Kaito mumbled to himself, then decided to no longer worry about it. After all, he had left this task to Shisui, so he didn't need to worry about it. Besides, when it came to handling this matter, Shisui was far more earnest than Kaito. He genuinely hoped Itachi would join them. Shisui and Itachi had a great relationship. Even before Kaito brainwashed Shisui, the relationship between the two was deeper than that between Kaito and Shisui. Before his death, Shisui gave his only Mangekyo Sharingan to Itachi, and Itachi even activated his Mangekyo Sharingan because of Shisui's death. It could be said that their relationship, indeed, was more like brothers than actual brothers. To put it bluntly, even though Shisui now has new thoughts and hopes, and has resolutely embarked on a brand new path, the bond between them is still there. Kaito was looking forward to seeing what would happen if Shisui tried to win over Uchiha Itachi. But for now, it's better to focus on myself. The things that need to be done are proceeding in an orderly manner. And I have time to properly handle my own affairs, such as thoroughly studying the ninja arts I need to learn. At the same time, I should think about how to further enhance my Susanoo. I have the ability to decrease the difficulty of using Susanoo and to increase its power. If I don't take full advantage of these benefits, it would truly be unjustifiable. Kaito indeed has many areas that need considerable improvement, especially in the ninja arts where he can achieve substantial progress. In the past, as a mission ninja, without joining any clan factions, he naturally didn't get much in the way of resources. But now that he has managed to persuade both sides, the resources available to him will undoubtedly be substantial. Now he can fully delve into the great fire annihilation technique he's been yearning for. He is quite excited about the prospect of one day shaking the world of the shinobi with a fire release technique, just like Uchiha Madara. However, I've been meeting with the members of both factions along with the elders for quite a few days now. Uchiha Fugaku couldn't possibly be unaware of the news. I wonder what he's thinking, or whether he can detect our ill will towards him. Whether Uchiha Fugaku can perceive their actions, truth be told, is no longer important. What is important is that Kaito has completed the initial stage of integration, and these things cannot be altered, whether he's aware or not. Now, the only thing left is the start of the next clan meeting. Everything will be completely changed then. As Kaito was quietly awaiting the start of the clan meeting, Uchiha Itachi had already returned to the clan due to his mission's completion. In fact, his return had another purpose. The clan meeting was about to begin, and he needed to participate in order to gather more intelligence. Although Shisui was also involved in this matter, Uchiha Itachi didn't concern himself too much with these details. In his view, this might be a method for gathering more comprehensive intelligence. However, upon his return, after taking a glance at his little brother, Sasuke, Uchiha Itachi once again quietly left the house and headed towards the secret meeting place he shared with Shisui. It had been a while since he had last seen Shisui. Missions for the Anbu were indeed busy, and highly confidential. Even though they were both in the Anbu, there were hardly any opportunities for them to meet. He had a lot of things he wanted to tell Shisui and numerous questions he wished to discuss with him. In his view, Shisui was like his brother, a brother who had looked after him splendidly from a young age and taught him many life lessons. Chapter 46, Chapter 46. Uchiha Itachi moved quickly. He discreetly bypassed the Uchiha clan's night sentinels in the darkness, taking roughly 10 minutes to reach a cliff on the riverbank. He didn't want to attract the attention of his clan, especially with the current atmosphere within the clan being so oppressive and peculiar. And this cliff was the secret base he and Shisui shared, a place where Uchiha Itachi could speak his mind and vent his true feelings. Looking up, he saw a silhouette sitting cross-legged at the edge of the cliff, silently watching the river flow by. Seeing this figure, Uchiha Itachi's face involuntarily broke into a small smile. Shisui. Itachi's face lit up with a joyous grin, and then he leaped towards Shisui's position. You're here, Itachi. Shisui also cracked a smile, subsequently standing up casually from the cliff's edge. The cliff was incredibly high, standing on the edge could easily induce dizziness. Yet Shisui seemed unaffected by all this, as if the towering cliff did not exist at all. Shortly, Uchiha Itachi arrived by his side, but almost instantly, a hint of curiosity emerged on Itachi's face. He looked Shisui up and down. He had the distinct feeling that his older brother seemed slightly different. The last time they met, although Shisui maintained a smile, one could sense a weariness and repression in his brow. But today was different. Shisui was still brimming with smiles, yet this smile was genuine, devoid of the previous helplessness and repression. Such a change piqued Uchiha Itachi's curiosity, and in the end, he couldn't help but ask, Shisui, you seem very happy today. What happened? You could say that, it's rather good news, Shisui nodded. Although he was somewhat moved by Itachi's keen response, he had no intention of hiding anything. He was indeed very happy now, as the changes within the clan truly filled him with joy. A recent conversation with Kaito had informed him that they were now only one step away from truly changing the clan. Although he wasn't particularly interested in the position of deputy clan leader, he knew it was a position that could genuinely help Kaito. A position that could provide a clearer perspective on the clan's changes, hence he didn't refuse at all. As for supervising Kaito, he thought it was utterly unnecessary. Kaito was so rational, and his power was so strong, he didn't think that Kaito could lead the Uchiha astray. He felt that what he needed to do was to help Kaito, to assist him and together witness the changes within the clan, and between the village. However, as he looked at Uchiha Itachi in front of him, Shisui suddenly felt a headache coming on, as he suddenly remembered Kaito telling him that some things should not be explained too explicitly. Although Shisui didn't quite understand why Kaito had this request, he also didn't understand why Kaito was somewhat distrustful of Itachi. But since Shisui had promised Kaito, he naturally would follow through, even if the person he was facing was Uchiha Itachi. What news? Uchiha Itachi felt very strange because Shisui's face had changed a bit when he mentioned good news, which made him quietly take note in his mind. Well. Suddenly, Shisui didn't know how to explain and begin speaking. He needed to organize his words properly, but his actions made Uchiha Itachi feel even more uneasy. After a long time, Shisui finally let out a faint sigh. He roughly knew what he wanted to say. It's like this. There might have been some changes within the clan. Both the elders of clan and Tekaki realized that what they did before might have been wrong. So, the clan has started to discard the previous voices, preparing to unify everyone's will. This way. Unify the will? Unify what? What are they going to do? Before Shisui could finish his words, Uchiha Itachi interrupted him directly, and his face now looked somewhat wrong. For Uchiha Itachi, this news was indeed astonishing and bewildering. The incessant debates between the two factions in the clan, how could he possibly not know? And as someone who longed for the clan and the village to live in peace, he could not imagine in any way that people on his side would unify their will with the Bloods. After unifying their will, could those who longed for peace still coexist peacefully with the village? Could they still persist in their ideals under such circumstances? Would they inevitably change under the influence of the Bloods, leading the entire clan to fall into extremism? These were things Uchiha Itachi could not and dared not imagine, especially when it came to Shisui, this man he regarded as his brother. From his appearance, he seemed to feel very good about such things, which was truly incomprehensible to Uchiha Itachi. Initially, it was Shisui who told him that the clan needed to trust and rely on the village, and the clan needed to reintegrate into the village in order for everyone to improve. Uchiha Itachi had always kept this belief in his heart. Only when he thought about issues, he would put himself in the position of the Hokage to view everything. And once he viewed the Uchiha from the perspective of the village, he found the Uchiha to be a factor of instability for the village. He had pondered why things turned out this way, but the conclusion he always came to was the clan is not content with the status quo, the clan always maintains unrealistic illusions. This made him yearn even more for the clan to settle down. Only if they settled down, his younger brother could have a better growth environment in Konoha, and Konoha would also become more stable. But now, a single sentence from Shisui made his heart chill. He didn't know why things had turned out this way, but he truly could not accept it. Itachi, don't rush, listen to me first. Shisui couldn't help but frown at Itachi's reaction. He didn't know what Itachi was thinking, and he had no idea how much Itachi really resisted such changes. He only thought Itachi was unable to accept it because he initially heard these things that contradicted his inner convictions. Therefore, he sighed and spoke slowly. Actually, the direction we've been striving for has always been wrong. Yes, I'm saying it's wrong. We desire peace, we desire to achieve peace with the village through our own efforts, thus allowing us to integrate into the village as a whole. But we've never considered one question, whether the village will actually let us integrate. And this question has already been answered in our constant compromises, concessions, and efforts, and the answer is, they won't. The third Hokage is the disciple of the second Hokage, and the changes in the Uchiha clan began with the second Hokage. The third Hokage inherited the will of the second, and not only him, but also those staff members feel the same way. Some things really aren't easy to change. During my time in the Anbu, I secretly browsed through some files, and I can tell you that everything I'm saying is true. Itachi, you've been intelligent since you were a kid, so tell me, under such circumstances, how are we to survive? Chapter 47, Chapter 47. After Shisui finished speaking, he silently watched Uchiha Itachi. And Itachi had already closed his eyes, falling into a deep silence, because he truly couldn't imagine that such words would come from Shisui. The second Hokage was displeased with the Uchiha clan? Then why did the second Hokage take Uchiha Kagami as a disciple and teach him meticulously? The third Hokage inherited the will of the second and also harbored dissatisfaction with the Uchiha? Then why did the third Hokage let the Uchiha clan control the police force, and why did he allow both Shisui and himself to join the Anbu? And what about the idea of making the Uchiha clan lower its guard through the police force, thus causing a divide between the Uchiha and the village? How could that be possible? The Uchiha clan gained tremendous power through the police force, but wasn't it the Uchiha's own attitude that caused the divide between the clan and the village? In Itachi's mind, he dared not and didn't want to believe Shisui's words. At this moment, he felt like the Shisui in front of him was a stranger. He didn't know why Shisui would believe such words. Couldn't he see everything the Hokage had done for the Uchiha clan? And if the third Hokage truly harbored dissatisfaction with the Uchiha, the reports they had submitted to the clan meetings could have long provided a basis for the Konoha to act against the Uchiha. Feelings of anger, sorrow, and disappointment were spreading in Uchiha Itachi's heart, but he quickly suppressed his inner thoughts. As a qualified ninja, especially as a member of the Anbu, he knew he couldn't easily reveal his emotions. Moreover, he needed to confirm many things, he had to gather more intelligence. So, what are you planning to do? Uchiha Itachi tried to make his tone sound as normal as possible. What's your new idea? Itachi, are you okay? Shisui furrowed his brows. Even though Uchiha Itachi seemed quite normal, Shisui was a member of the Anbu. He naturally sensed that Itachi was not quite himself at this moment, but after a moment of thought, he decided it would be best to have a serious talk with Itachi. After all, Itachi was the prodigy of the clan. If he could truly assist the clan, it would undoubtedly be a good thing for them. Especially now, things were different from before. Shisui saw hope for the future, and he truly wanted to persuade Itachi to join them and offer his help. "I'm fine, don't worry." Uchiha Itachi took a deep breath before speaking earnestly. "In that case, let me tell you." Shisui gently nodded, then began to speak seriously. Shisui spoke slowly, but also with great detail. He discussed the debates of the two factions within the clan about the current situation of the Konoha and the clan, and relayed the conclusions they had reached after excluding Uchiha Kaito from their considerations. For instance, the clan had come to understand that continued weakness would lead to no good outcome, because weakness would inevitably result in the Konoha gradually eroding their influence. In the end, the clan wouldn't get any closer to the Konoha, but instead the distance would continue to grow until they ceased to exist within the Konoha. Continuing with a hardline stance also won't result in anything good. If they persist in being obstinate, the clan will only end up antagonizing the whole Konoha, and the ultimate result will still be their demise. Given this, the best course for both sides would be to integrate their thoughts and wills, stop fighting, and stop fracturing the clan. They decided not to compromise excessively with the Konoha. They need to be assertive, they need to resist, they need to rebel. But they can't be dogmatically assertive, they must have a clear objective. They don't plan to betray, but they will take the necessary hostile measures towards their own objectives. They want the Konoha to hear their voices. With that, Shisui stopped talking. In his view, this was enough. Even though what he said wasn't especially detailed, he had promised Kaito he wouldn't betray his trust. He thought what he'd shared was completely understandable. Because the meaning Shisui conveyed was quite clear, they intend to adopt a different method to achieve peace between the clan and the village. However, Uchiha Itachi's face had become even more grim. Particularly when he heard Shisui say no longer compromising or retreating, needing to be assertive and rebel, he knew things were going to get bad. Although Shisui kept emphasizing that the clan would not revolt, and that the clan wanted peace with the village, how could the clan not compromise yet not rebel to achieve this? In the end, they would likely become endlessly entangled with the Hokage, leading to a schism between the Hokage and the clan, thus causing a split between the Konoha and the clan. The Hokage is the Hokage of the Konoha. Being at odds with the Hokage, doesn't that equate to being at odds with the Konoha? This is nothing but rebellion cloaked in euphemism, merely donning an attractive disguise. His heart is now a whirl of chaos. He could never have dreamt that the one he regarded as an elder brother, who had taken care of him for many years and shared the same ideals, had utterly changed in this moment, turned completely into a stranger. Silently, Uchiha Itachi turned his head to one side, his gaze fixed on the massive, towering cliff. He felt as if, with Shisui's words, the Shisui of his memory who was both a mentor and a friend had departed. The gentle Shisui who loved the Konoha had fallen into the abyss, the Shisui who he saw as a role model had gone forever. The moment this man before him uttered such words, he could no longer find the Shisui of the past. He felt a grief in his heart that was about to burst forth. Suppressing the sorrow within him, he raised his head to look at Shisui silently. Finally, his thousands of thoughts and countless words condensed into one sentence. "Shisui, are you certain you want to abandon our once shared dream, and embark on such a path?" "What?" Shisui was slightly baffled by Uchiha Itachi's words, wondering if he had said something wrong or failed to explain himself clearly. However, Uchiha Itachi clearly didn't give him the chance to clarify. Raising his head, Itachi's eyes had already transformed into a crimson red. His gaze was firmly fixed on Shisui, his tone resolute as he continued to question. "Are you sure you want to confront the village? are you sure you want to disrupt the peace of the village? Are you sure you want to drag both the clan and the village into the abyss? With these words, Shisui's expression changed as well. He could see that Itaki in front of him seemed incapable of understanding their thoughts, unwilling to even try. It seemed to him that Itaki had firmly decided that the only way for the clan to integrate into the Konoha was through peace, and everything they were doing seemed to be pushing both the clan and the village into the abyss. Such a situation made Shisui's expression very unpleasant. He had once thought the same way, but under Kaito's guidance, he had changed. He seemed to remember the clan elders saying that Itaki was a person of firm will, not prone to changes. Such resolute will could mold him into a great ninja, but once a problem arises, he could potentially walk a path of darkness. Itaki, listen to me. Shisui was a bit anxious, his feelings for Itaki were sincere, and he wanted to attempt to salvage the situation. There's no need to continue, Shisui. But before Shisui could finish, Itaki interrupted him. Wishing to oppose the village, wanting to confront the village through your so-called combination of all clan members' will. Breaking the peace of the village and even dragging unrelated parties into it, then. At this point, the three Tomo Sharingan in Uchiha Itaki's eyes began to rotate rapidly. I will absolutely not allow it, I will not let your plans harm my family, harm the entire village, you'll have to get past me first. As his words fell, Uchiha Itaki looked deeply at Shisui. He trusted Shisui more than he trusted the third Hokage. But from today onwards, he felt that he could no longer trust Shisui. He had his own stubbornness, he hoped for the village's peace and stability, he wished for his younger brother to grow up safely in the village. He did not want there to be any problems between the clan and the village, he yearned for that sincere peace. Turning around, Uchiha Itaki left silently, feeling as if there had been some changes in his eyes, but the heartbroken him had no time to pay attention to these things. Meanwhile, Shisui, watching Itaki's retreating figure, couldn't help but sigh. He wasn't sure if everything he said was wrong. His expressed viewpoint was actually the same as Kaito's. That is, one cannot always compromise, but also cannot always be tough. The clan's integration into the village is not about servitude, they just want the Konoha to hear their voice. Drawing a deep breath, Shisui quietly closed his eyes. After a long while, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. It seems that Kaito was right not to let me speak about him, not to disclose all the plans. Chapter 48, Chapter 48. It seems that Itaki has rejected your invitation. Didn't you explain it clearly to him? I'm sorry, Kaito, I couldn't convince him. Perhaps I didn't express myself clearly, leading him to not recognize our ideas. In a modestly decorated room, Kaito, Shisui, and the Uchiha elders, including Uchiha S and Uchiha Tekaki, sat together. Shisui appeared quite self-reproachful. Shisui had fully recounted his meeting with Itaki and how he had expressed himself. Listening to this, both Kaito and the elders felt there was no problem. In Shisui's recount, he neither exposed Kaito's existence nor the things they were about to do next, only explaining a fact that almost everyone in the clan understood. That is, the clan cannot be weak but also cannot be arrogant. What they seek is peace and fairness. They want the Konoha to hear their voices, and that's all. However, from Shisui's description of Itaki's reaction, it seemed he only heard that the Uchiha intended to resist the Hokage, resist the Konoha. The problem is, while the Hokage and the Konoha are one, they can also be separated. Their resistance to the Hokage is not a confrontation with the Konoha. They want everyone in the Konoha to hear their voice, not to start a war with the Konoha. Itaki's attitude was indeed giving them some headaches, and his stance was exceptionally clear, he was firmly against these changes. He is vehemently against conflict between the clan and the village, yearning for a peaceful consensus to be reached between the two. I've mentioned it before about that boy Itaki. He is a person of strong will, he won't easily change his stance and ideas. Uchiha S let out a helpless sigh, not making his words too harsh, as there was absolutely no need for it. He was well aware of the relationship between Shisui and Itachi, how they had grown up together, and the impact this event had on Shisui. Naturally, he didn't want to rub salt in Shisui's wounds. He also knew that it was Kaito who wanted to try to win over Itachi, and now that it failed, there was no need to dwell on this matter any longer. Never mind the failure, it's not your fault. Maybe it's because I didn't let you explain everything. I'll meet him next time. Kaito looked at Shisui's self-reproachful appearance and couldn't help but shake his head, and then he began to comfort him. To be honest, he wasn't overly disappointed about Itachi Uchiha's choice, although it was a bit of a pity that they couldn't get this potential Mangeki user to follow him. But Kaito isn't someone who dwells on things excessively. The potential is there, but it isn't truly awakened. Moreover, this guy's thinking is quite extreme. Shisui, while showing some weakness at the most desperate key moment. But in the end, he hasn't done anything that would provoke the ire of gods and men. Yet Itachi Uchiha was truly capable of ruthlessly annihilating the entire clan, leaving only his dearly loved younger brother. From Konoha's perspective, Itachi's actions could be seen as upholding justice over familial ties, but was Konoha really in the right? Shaking his head, Kaito didn't feel like thinking about this matter any longer. Be it a misunderstanding or his own decision, one must follow through with the choices one makes. This is a harsh world where you must take responsibility for your choices. Thank you for your comfort, I'm fine, Kaito. Shisui forced a smile, then took a deep breath before he earnestly spoke. Although it's regrettable that Itachi made such a choice, there are some things we can't control. Upon saying this, Shisui paused slightly, then his expression became even more serious. So all we can do is look forward and do our best. Only then can we prove to him that we are right, and that our choices are the correct ones. Kaito looked at Shisui's resolve, finally nodding his head in agreement. But even if they could prove that they were right, what would that change? Is it possible that Itachi Uchiha will come back to them? Even if he did come back, Kaito might be able to accept him, but would these elders be able to? That's another question. Besides, Kaito had no doubt that Itachi would report this matter. Even if what he reported wasn't a big deal, it would still cause significant friction. After all, which clan wouldn't despise a spy? Thinking about a spy, Kaito unconsciously looked at Shisui. This kid was originally considered one, wasn't he? What's wrong, Kaito? Shisui naturally noticed Kaito's gaze and felt somewhat uncomfortable under it. Nothing, just thinking about something. Kaito quickly shook his head. However, after a brief thought, he suddenly asked. If, and I say if, Itachi Uchiha chose to act against us, just like he said to you, and he took real action for this, what would you do? The threatening words of Itachi Uchiha were also recounted by Shisui, so naturally, Kaito and these elders knew about them. Kaito's question also piqued the interest of the elders, who looked towards Shisui curiously, wondering how he would face his little brother. I would stop him, I won't let him become an obstacle to us. Without any hesitation, Shisui spoke firmly. If things really come to an unavoidable point, I won't show any mercy. He has his beliefs, and I have my own persistence. Even if I still consider him my brother, there are things that I absolutely cannot yield on. Shisui's stance was very resolute, which brought smiles to the faces of Kaito and the elders. Nobody wanted to stir up trouble at this time, especially since they had already completed the basic deployment. The conflicts and disputes between the spirits and the bloods have been significantly alleviated thanks to Kaito's mediation and their mutual compromises. And Kaito had also basically visited and contacted the lowest-ranking members of the Uchiha clan, understanding their circumstances and needs. Under these conditions, what they had to do was to confront Uchiha Fugaku at the clan meeting tomorrow night. To challenge the clan head, even to the point of forcing him to step down, this was indeed a precedent in the history of the Uchiha clan. To tell the truth, they were somewhat apprehensive about this kind of thing. It was only the presence of 2 Mangekyo Sharingans that gave them peace of mind. If something happened to one of the Mangekyo Sharingans at this time, and it affected the clan head's son, anyone would be worried. But thankfully, Shisui did not disappoint them, he did not let them down this time. There's no need for you to do such cruel things, you don't have to prove anything, we all trust you. Kaito patted Shisui's shoulder, then continued to speak with a smile. If necessary, I'll face him. At least, I won't have many old feelings for him. You need to adjust your state properly, tomorrow night is the day of the clan meeting, it's also our most important time. Indeed, tomorrow night's clan meeting would be the start of the Uchiha's transformation, and Shisui had to be in top form to deal with any potential unexpected situations. The Uchiha's change would start from tomorrow, and Shisui clenched his fists silently. Even though his conversation with Itaka had ended up like this. But regardless, Shisui had firmly committed to this path and he wouldn't change it no matter what. Just as he said, he needs to look forward, he needs to do his best, he wants to show Itaka who is right. I'll make you see, Itaka. Chapter 49, Chapter 49. The Naka Shrine is a forbidden ground, an ancestral place for the Uchiha clan. It only opens when the Uchiha have a clan meeting, and at other times, only the clan head can enter. When Uchiha Madara was the clan head, the Uchiha family was a one-man show, and the clan meeting was merely a formality. After all, the strength of Uchiha Madara was undisputed. To put it bluntly, he was undoubtedly the most powerful individual in the Uchiha clan for the past 100 years. Unfortunately, the Senju clan, the Uchiha's sworn enemy, also had a formidable character who could suppress and defeat Madara. In Kaito's memory, during the final decisive battle between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, both seemed exhausted. Yet under such conditions, Senju Hashirama was still able to launch a surprise attack, suggesting that although their power was closely matched, overall Hashirama had the upper hand. Even though the advantage was small, given their level of strength, this was still a significant gap. Moreover, throughout their lengthy struggle, Senju Hashirama generally held the advantage. So, the reason why Senju Hashirama was the first Hokage of Konoha, apart from Madara's personality, might also have been due to his combat prowess, right? However, the Senju clan is no more, and while the Uchiha are still here, they have reached a dangerously critical juncture. Furthermore, the Uchiha of today no longer have the domineering Uchiha Madara. Actually, in Uchiha history, Madara might have been the only one who didn't need to convene a clan meeting, as no previous clan heads were as dominant as him. So, the majority of family matters needed to be discussed at clan meetings held periodically, and only after these discussions were there considerations for execution. While the clan head does hold a veto power and the authority to make decisions, especially on key matters, it's rare for a clan head to use it. Kaito quietly walked with Shisui towards the Naka shrine, both of them feeling somewhat nervous. After all, what they planned to do that night was probably unprecedented in the entire Uchiha clan. However, both of them were competent ninjas who could control their emotions. Nervous? Suddenly, Kaito amusingly asked, after all, tonight's events are not simple. I'm a bit nervous, but I believe everything will be fine with you here. Shisui inhaled deeply before slowly responding. Let's hope there won't be any chaos tonight. Kaito nodded and then continued, by the way, will Itaki attend the clan meeting? Under normal circumstances, he would. Shisui nodded, but his expression quickly turned extremely serious. However, I won't let him in. This clan meeting was very important. Kaito and the elders all believed that whatever happened inside should not be revealed until the issues were completely resolved. No one wished for complications, nor for news of this event to leak out and be exploited by those who might arrange ill intentions. Only when they had everything under control would they make a public announcement. Uchiha Itaki, as a member of the Anbu and having made his stance clear, would under no circumstances be allowed by Kaito to participate in this clan meeting. Even if he was the son of Uchiha Fugaku, or even if he possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan, it wouldn't make a difference. The Uchiha clan, a family that prides itself on the Sharingan. In the eyes of the Uchiha family members, only those who have awakened the Sharingan can be truly considered part of the Uchiha clan, and can possess a certain say within the family. Therefore, to participate in this Nanhi Shrine's clan meeting, one must meet a prerequisite. Only those who have awakened the Sharingan are eligible to appear here and participate in the meeting. It's a tough job for you. Kaito lightly smiled at Shisui, then took a deep breath and said seriously, "We're here. Let's go and create an era that belongs to us." As his words fell, Kaito took the lead in pushing open the door, and Shisui, taking this seriously, nodded and followed him inside. As the doors swung open, the Uchiha clan members already seated within the shrine couldn't help but turn their heads to look at Kaito and Shisui. However, upon seeing Kaito and Shisui, they involuntarily averted their gaze, then slightly lowered their heads, not daring to make eye contact with the two. Shisui's reputation was well known within the family, and both the Spirits and Blood's young people had to admit his prowess. Especially the members of the Spirit faction, they were even more aware of Shisui's strength and his status in the Uchiha clan. As for Uchiha Kaito, even though he had been on par with Shisui since they were young, this started to change when he chose to become a mission ninja instead of joining any of the family's factions or even the security department. Kaito's name began to gradually fade within the clan. Even though the young people in their group still had a good impression of him, they all shared one understanding. That was that Kaito probably wouldn't be able to catch up with Shisui. No matter how good their relationship was, the gap between them would only grow wider. However, what was beyond everyone's wildest dreams was that Kaito had undergone drastic changes starting a few months ago. Then, he even inexplicably gained Shisui's support, earned the elders' trust, and most importantly, he turned out to be an Uchiha with the Mangekyo Sharingan. This information left them all utterly flabbergasted, and what was even more shocking was that even those Bloods surprisingly chose to support him. And those fellows even cooperated with their side, altering many of their original entrenched beliefs. All these changes happened so swiftly that it was hard for anyone to keep up. The most unimaginable thing for them was that what they were about to do was to overthrow the incumbent clan leader and allow Kaito, a 15-year-old boy, to become the new clan leader. But they had to admit that after hearing the elders and Shisui tell them about Kaito's views, they too felt that Kaito was right. The Uchiha indeed needed to change. Their current clan leader was indeed unfit, and they indeed needed to do something. The people of the Spirit faction already had such thoughts and had accepted Kaito, so it goes without saying for the people of the Blood faction. After all, those among them who could sit here had all been taught a lesson by Kaito, and they had personally witnessed Kaito's Mangekyo Sharingan. They would probably never forget the strange patterns in Kaito's eyes, nor the bright blue, human-shaped Susanoo that covered him. That night, Kaito was like an Asura, and that night, their confidence was utterly shattered by him. Now they all support Kaito, not only because Kaito's words and thoughts made them understand their problems, but more importantly, Kaito's strength was worth their following. And in the room, the only one who looked a bit serious was Uchiha Fugaku, who was seated in the clan leader's position. He stared at Kaito, stared at Shisui, his mind filled with myriad thoughts. Chapter 50, Chapter 50. Uchiha Fugaku, despite being a weak and indecisive clan leader, it does not affect the fact that some within the clan would still follow him. At this moment, Fugaku's heart was also full of doubts and concerns. He had heard about the events that had happened within the clan in the past month. He had absolutely no idea why two factions with severely opposing ideologies would come together and even show signs of reconciliation, which to him was completely incomprehensible. Having been the clan leader for so long, he naturally knew to what extent these two factions had become irreconcilable. The fact that neither side had really taken action was probably out of consideration for the clan's laws, and possibly because of the existence of the youngster Uchiha Shisui. Other people might not know much about Shisui, only that he was incredibly strong, but they didn't know why he was so strong. But as elders, they couldn't possibly be unaware that Shisui was a bearer of the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, everything is different now. The young people on both sides have started to communicate, and the elders have started to sit down and talk. This change truly surpassed Fugaku's understanding. In fact, this would normally be a good thing, as he also yearned for peace in the clan, but the old him simply could not achieve this and didn't know how to do so. However, this harmony is completely beyond his control, and this harmony excludes him. An anomaly indicates a demon. Perhaps there's no such saying in this world, but there are certainly similar sentiments. Particularly, Fugaku noticed that within such events, a figure was hidden, and the owner of this figure was Uchiha Kaito. Uchiha Kaito was a genius of the clan, this was indisputable. He was classmates with Shisui and experienced the brutality of war at a young age. Moreover, after this, Kaito even activated his 3-tomo Sharingan and passed the examination to become a member of the Konoha Jonin. Such a young man was undeniably bright in any perspective, but this lad seemed to have been very different from other Uchiha clan members since childhood. Not only his character was different, even his choices were different from others. He didn't join any faction in the clan, nor did he join the police force, but became a mission ninja. How could Fugaku be at ease when such a person, who seemed somewhat incompatible with the clan members, was now mixed up with these factions? And today's clan meeting made him feel a sense of unease from the start, but no matter how uneasy, he now had to stabilize his emotions. After all, he was the clan head of the Uchiha. The clan leader, everyone is here, I think we can start. Just as Fugaku was deep in thought, Uchiha Takaki suddenly spoke. This voice brought Fugaku back to his senses, but he quickly shook his head. Wait a bit longer, Itaka has returned, I think he should come over. I'm sorry, clan leader, this time we don't wish for Itaka to participate. No sooner had Fugaku's words fallen, Uchiha S stood up and said softly. Uchiha S's words made Fugaku's eyebrows involuntarily furrow a bit, his unease becoming even more severe. Not allowing his own son, Uchiha Itachi, who possesses the 3-tomo Sharingan, to participate, and the one who said this was surprisingly Uchiha S, left Fugaku utterly stunned. Who was Uchiha S? This fellow was a leading elder of the spirit faction, and due to cultivating Uchiha Shisui, he gradually seized the control of their faction. Strictly speaking, his own son Itaka was following him, and now he actively refused to let Itaka participate, and even together with Uchiha Takaki. Anybody could tell, given these turn of events, the trouble level of tonight's matter might far exceed expectations. What do you mean? Before Fugaku could speak, a young man sitting in the crowd suddenly opened his mouth discontentedly. The clan leader's son will be our future leader, what right do you have? Hirano, don't speak. The young man hadn't finished speaking when he was quickly interrupted by Fugaku. This young man was one of those following Fugaku. He was loyal and adhered to tradition, and his strength was also decent, but his vision was slightly limited. The current situation was a collective decision by the elders of both factions. It would be asking for trouble if a clan member who only served in the police department began to rebut. Although Fugaku was the clan leader and could oppose strongly, he did not want to imagine what would happen after opposing, and even less wanted to see it. The clan was already chaotic enough, he certainly did not wish for more chaos. Clan leader Uchiha Hirano still wanted to say something, but he was quickly interrupted by Fugaku again. Since it is the request of the two elders, I shall comply respectfully. Uchiha Fugaku said calmly. Also, Hirano is just a young man, he doesn't understand much, I hope you two wouldn't mind. After Fugaku finished speaking, he quietly looked at the two of them. His attitude was expressed very clearly, and Uchiha Hirano also seemed to realize his impulsiveness. Although the youngster was still a bit indignant, he obediently quieted down, and for a moment, the entire shrine meeting place seemed exceptionally silent. Don't worry, Hirano-kun is also considering the clan leader. Uchiha Takaki shook his head, then he continued, "Can we start now? Let's begin." Uchiha Fugaku took a deep breath, then calmly said, "I wonder, what topics do you two wish to discuss in this clan meeting?" Uchiha Fugaku was obviously somewhat emotional, but even in this emotional state he could still bear it. After all, it was for the peace of the clan. This clan meeting is very important. After discussing with Elder S, we both feel it necessary to discuss the current situation thoroughly. Uchiha Takaki said calmly, then he turned his head to look at Uchiha Kaito, who was sitting with Shisui. "Kaito-kun, come over here. You are the protagonist of this clan meeting." Accompanying Uchiha Takaki's words, everyone turned their attention towards Kaito. Those who already knew what was going to happen appeared very calm, while the few who did not know appeared somewhat confused. Uchiha Fugaku was one of those confused people, but his inner unease had increasingly become more severe. He could sense that this event was probably directed at him. After all, the two factions had come together and deliberately bypassed him. They had also kept his son outside, which already spoke volumes, yet he still wondered what exactly these people wanted to do. What was the purpose of pushing Kaito forward, and wasn't Shisui in the same boat as him? Could it be that Shisui already had new ideas? Amidst these various doubts, Kaito rose and walked to the center of the venue. He first nodded gently to Uchiha Takaki and Uchiha S, finally turning his gaze to Uchiha Fugaku. "Ladies and gentlemen, I presume you all know who I am, so there is no need for self-introduction. Even though I personally am reluctant to stand here, the situation within the clan has become so severe that it can no longer be ignored. And the cause of it all is our clan leader. I stand here today with the purpose of impeaching our clan leader, Uchiha Fugaku.